So I thought that we had escaped this life for at least a set or two. I was really hoping when they started rolling out spoilers for Kaldheim, I was like, we just got Commander Legends.
Yeah.
It's a new year. They can't hurt us anymore.
Very true.
I've had to buy so many Magic singles within 2020, and it's not going to stop, unfortunately.
Yeah, they keep doling out powerful cards in the new sets.
And I feel targeted specifically because there's too many good white cards.
Yeah.
And I want them. And they're expensive.
Yeah.
So this is going to be our kind of... We decided we don't personally enjoy set reviews that often. And we did kind of a pilot set review episode before officially posting anything. And it took forever. It was 2.5 hours long. And there's just too much to talk about within each set, especially when they make so many good cards for Commander.
Yeah, and you forget some things, and it just kind of there ends up being problems with it. So I think what we're gonna do is, instead of doing a full set review, we're just going to talk about some cards in the set that we like, and not leaving off even some powerful cards if we just don't have much to say about them or want to talk about them.
Yeah, there's some cards that are just obviously powerful, and you can see exactly why they are. I don't think there's much value in us saying, Tegrid is good if you play Dark Deal. There's not much to talk about there.
Everyone, if you follow Commander at all, you know that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about cards that we specifically like and think that we might play in decks, or that we could see being played in decks we might make, or that friends of ours have.
Maybe a couple cards that we don't like, but other than that, just some things that we're passionate about, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to try and talk about stuff that we think might not get mentioned so often. There'll be a few things that we'll probably be repeating the general consensus on, but, we like to have some hot takes. We like to have fresh takes on EDH Takes.
Of course.
That's our secret sauce.
So as of right now, that's going to be kind of our model for when sets come out. Unless, subject to change, of course, but that's what we're going to go for right now, at least.
So we put this in Wooburg order for now. We were thinking of rearranging it because we talk about white a lot so far, and that's not going to change today.
Maybe next time.
You know how Command Zone has a thing they're today we're gonna try not to talk shit about white. And we're
I promised myself for this episode.
Today we're gonna try and not say good things about white, but it's just gonna happen every time.
Yeah.
Because I really think that as far as Commander, it seems to me there's a lot of good white cards, more so than the other colors got a few cool cards but white really got some neat stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing is, a lot of the other colors black and red and green and stuff and blue, I guess, all four of them, they got a couple pretty powerful really good cards, but white got really a larger quantity of kind of mid to high power level cards. So you just have a lot more to talk about, I think, in quantity.
And quite a few of them are kind of not so much just good stuff cards, but I could see them being played in quite a few different types of decks.
Yeah, not super specific to a specific Commander deck or an archetype.
Yeah, so speaking of that, the first one is just kind of that we're going to talk about. It's a card that can really go in any white X deck, and I think it probably should. It's the Doom Scar.
Yeah.
Which is a 5-mana white sorcery that just destroys all creatures. So that seems pretty simple, but it also has the new foretell mechanic. So for 2 mana you can foretell it, and then on a later turn you pay its foretell cost, which is 1 white. So this is kind of a 3 mana destroy all creatures.
Yeah,
which, as I understand it, for white, that's functionally unique now.
Yeah, all the other destroy all creatures cards and stuff in other colors and stuff have very major drawbacks, that black Bontu's Last Reckoning or Reward or whatever that lets you not untap your lands.
You don't get a 3-mana Wrath very easily. There's Toxic Deluge,
but that's the only one. And then in white we haven't had that so far. So yeah, like you said,
the most efficient white Wrath being Wrath of God at 4 mana, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated.
Yeah.
This I think I like better than Wrath of God.
Yeah, and the thing with this card is that people have pointed out that there are a problem with foretell is that you can't, if you foretell the card, you can't play it on the same turn. So for foretells that have a discount when you a discount for total mana, you can't like do it all in the same turn. But if you just want to cast this card, like on the turn you need to cast it, you just don't foretell it, and you just play it for 5.
Yeah, 5
like,
mana
it's the same
Wrath
mana total.
isn't bad. Like, actually, I think Commander nowadays, like, especially in more casual to like mid-power settings, people don't play like a lot of just like Wraths based on efficiency. They play them based on utility.
Yeah.
And this, I think, has, you'll play a 5 mana Wrath in Commander and it'll be fine.
Yeah, 5 mana Wraths are actually I think they're much more common than 4 mana Wraths in Commander.
Yeah, and like I guess the biggest argument for like lower CMC Wraths are either because you're in a more competitive environment and you need to play them as soon as possible, or you want them cheaper so you can start building out your board more quickly afterwards. And the second part there, I think, is where Doomscar is really nice, because you can foretell it on later turn, 3 mana Wrath the board, and then have the rest of your mana up to play another card afterwards.
Yeah, and the thing I really like about this foretell mechanic in particular is that it lets you have like ways to spend your mana early if you miss your 2-drop or something, which is really cool. The more mana that you like don't end up spending on the early turns, the more mana you waste in a game.
Yeah, in our last episode we talked about that, and I think the foretell mechanic is just really nice for that. So we'll probably mention that a couple other times later in this episode. But foretell is a really neat mechanic.
There are definitely some really cool foretell cards in this set.
And our second card is the Glorious Protector. So it's a 4 mana angel creature. It's got flash and flying. Enters the battlefield and exiles any number of non-angel creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. Notably, when it leaves the battlefield, not when it dies. And it also has a foretell cost of 3, so again, you can play it for 2 and then foretell it later on a later turn for just 3 mana. And I think this is actually my new second favorite like Wrath protection card, like next to Teferi's Protection.
Yeah.
Because notably, like a lot of Wrath protection cards are like your creatures gain indestructible until end of turn, or like Faith's Reward that returns them all cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This protects you from Cyclonic Rift and Toxic Deluge,
which are some of the best board wipes in the format. So
I think most people can expect if they're playing against 1 or 2 blue decks that they're going to see it. Cyclonic Rift within that game.
Yeah, and having Flash, of course, is a really cool combo with Foretell, because like the best thing about Flash and Foretell is that the Foretell cost for cards is usually cheaper, so you foretell it at some point, and then you get to you don't have to hold up very much mana to do it, and as a surprise. There's a later card in the set that I want to talk about that's only, the foretell cost is only 1 mana, so like I really like this idea of like instants or flash cards with foretell.
Yeah.
This one only you have to hold up 3 mana to do a board wipe protection plus a creature.
Yeah, and it's an efficient creature too that like you can
just play it as a like on an end step to have like a creature to equip something to or whatever.
Yeah, or you can use it to get incidental like blink synergies if you have a bunch of creatures with enter the battlefield effects and you just flash this in, blink them out, and then do something to blink the protector. You get all those creatures back and you trigger all their
I think this card's kind of cool. It reminds me of Yorion, because it's got like that ability to blink multiple things. You need to have like a Kiki-Jiki or something so you can like Kiki-Jiki this in play and then have the Kiki-Jiki copy, target all your stuff, and then on the end step they all come back. But that's a pretty cool thing about it.
Yep, super solid.
Yeah. Our next card we're going to talk about is a pretty cool one. It's Halvar, God of Battle / Sword of the Realms, as is these new modal double face legendary creatures are pretty cool. This one's a little bit complicated. If I could just like describe it very briefly, it's a 4 mana 4/4. He says your enchanted or equipped creatures at double strike, and he also says the beginning of each combat, so everyone's turn, you can attach one aura or equipment that you have attached to a creature you control to another creature you control. It's a little bit like, it does a lot of things, but just if we dial this back from like all that interesting stuff it does, it's also just a 4 mana 4/4 that gives your equipped things double strike. That's the thing I think a lot of people overlook about it, that it's like that on its own would probably be a considerable card.
Yeah, that's a really efficient body. Double strike is a huge ability. That on its own, like that's all good stuff. Also the ability in like a Voltron or an aggressive deck to swing in with your big Voltron creature. It has double strike, and then on the next combat, like when you pass the turn, because this triggers on your opponent's turns too.
Yep.
You can move all, like one equipment from that creature onto say Halvar, and then it'll be a 4/4 plus, assuming the equipment doesn't even give any like stat boost, with double strike.
Yeah, as a blocker. Yeah, and even if you have like a Sword of X, you can give it protection or something else. Yeah, being able to move it onto blockers and then move them back onto your attackers later is really cool.
Like turn 4, aside from like evasion, what's going to be able to swing into you when you have a 4/4 double strike?
Yeah, especially if you go like if you go like Arden on turn 3 or something and equip like a 2-mana cost equipment to it or something.
Which, speaking of, it's also a 2-mana equipment.
Yeah.
So the Sword of the Realms is 1 and white. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. And whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. It has a equip cost of 2.
Yeah, it being the equipped creature, not the sword.
So again, vigilance gives this kind of like the defensive capability for like a Voltron deck. Not like a huge stat boost. And then when the equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. So that's going to be kind of nice against board wipes. Like you won't have to pay commander tax if you're a Voltron deck. Or you can do some ways to like get interesting card advantage with that, like put it on a recruiter or something and skull clamp that creature or sacrifice it.
I think the front side is a little bit more powerful in a vacuum, but like the flexibility of being able to play this as a equipment when you just don't have any equipment and you need to trigger your Akiri or something is really cool.
Yeah, like my recent deck is Arden and Rograk partners, and it's a Voltron deck, so I ideally want to have a 2-mana or a 1-mana equipment, so on turn 3 I can trigger Arden and put that onto Rograk. So this is going to fill 2 spots on that curve and 2 different functions in the deck. So I'm really excited about Halvar.
Yeah, it's awesome. Oh, moving on, I want to talk about Raidane, God of the Worthy. This card is really cool. I like this a lot. This is another of the modal double-face flip cards. It's a 3-mana 2/3 with flying and vigilance, so it's an okay body. I kind of like that about it. It's got a good body. Evasive, and it has the ability snow lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. I think this is an incidental ability. Like, I don't think it's very important, but just let me finish reading the card real quick. And the important thing about it is it's got non-creature spells your opponent's cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. So kind of that Gadok Teague kind of effect to it. Not quite the same, but it's a really good body that taxes your opponents, not yourself, not symmetrical, and it's like incidental Snowland hate, which people are playing these days, I think.
Yeah, I really like to see asymmetry on white stacks cards, so it's not like hating yourself out when you play it. You don't have to play around your own effect there.
Yeah.
And sure, it's things that cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. Like, so it's there's a lot that it's gonna miss.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of big stuff like board wipes, notably. Board wipes costing 2 more. That sometimes can mean 2 turns where they're not able to play the spell they want to play when they want to play it.
Yeah, and 2 is a lot.
Yeah, 2's a lot to pay.
If you ever had that artifact, the 6-mana artifact in play against you that makes all your stuff cost 2 more to cast, you hate it so much. It's so bad.
Yeah, like I think we talked about on our last episode how a lot of decks will want to play 2-mana ramp to play something big on turn 3 instead of like turn 4. So if you're going before that player and you play Redain, then they can't. Their curve doesn't function like it's supposed to anymore.
Yeah, they're like Gilded Lotus or they're like Doubling Season or something just doesn't come out. That's nice. On the backside, we want to mention that probably.
The backside, it's not quite as great, but it's a 4-mana artifact. If a source an opponent controls deal damage to a permanent you control, to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. And whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. So that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but I think there's some like infinite combos that stops, right?
Yeah, like a Goblin Bombardment thing, it stops that, right? That anything that pings, it's really good against. So like I think this is just like that's just like a flexibility option. Like you play it on the back if you like need to protect yourself from something on board. Like if someone has a Perforos, you could consider it because it halves Perforos' damage against you.
Yeah, cutting that in half is big. Protecting your creatures is nice, but yeah, also the second part of it where it makes the spell or ability cost 1 more. That'll affect a lot more other like infinite abilities. Like they can't, like you were saying about like Goblin Bombardment, that can't deal any damage. But even if it's
they have to pay. Yeah, you're right.
Like somebody trying to infinitely mill you, they can't do that now.
Yeah, the very interesting thing with this that I don't think we've had on any cards, at least that I recall, is that usually they make these cards where it says your opponent's spells that target you or a thing you control cost more to cast, like Kasmina, the Planeswalker from War of the Spark. But this says spells or abilities that target you. They don't make them cost more to cast. It's a triggered ability that makes them have to pay one, kind of like a Rhystic Study. Otherwise, it's countered. Where Rhystic Study, obviously, otherwise they draw a card. But, like, so this works for abilities that they put on the stack that they don't even have to, like, spend mana for. So, like, if they play, like, a Reclamation Sage, if they don't have the extra mana for it, it just counters that ability.
Yeah, I think that aspect is pretty big, too, because oftentimes people will use a lot of removal in the form of repeating an activated or a triggered ability.
Yes, for sure.
Because say you have a creature, like that's a pinger or something like that, like can tap to destroy something, people will just use that ability to use it once per turn cycle if they can.
The value...
If all of a sudden it costs one to target your thing, they'll have to play off curve to do that.
The value of all those cards is that they don't cost you an additional mana sink like every turn that you need to use them. The thing that they're good for is that you don't have to pay any more mana into them, and if you make them have to do that, it's kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously I think the front side is a lot better on this card, but the flexibility is nice.
Mm-hmm.
This next card is another card that I want to talk about because this is kind of the love of my life. But sorry, a little bit cringe. But Resplendent Marshal, I think, is a really cool card. I think maybe a little bit underhyped. I don't think it's like obscenely powerful, but I love these cards that just have like good bodies and like incidental effects that are beneficial. So this is a 3-mana 3/3 flyer, Angel Warrior. So obviously, good body, like I said, and it's got this ability of when it enters the battlefield or leaves or dies. Sorry. You can exile another creature card in your graveyard, and if you do, you put a counter on all your other creatures that share a type with it, with the exiled card. So, a 3-mana 3/3 flyer that comes into play and gives your other creatures a counter would be pretty good, right? I think that'd be a solid in certain decks. It's not quite that, but a lot of like, I'm happy with this card being a 3-mana 3/3 flyer with potential upside, and I think you should too. It's got some cool synergy with cards like Mirror Entity. If you exile a Mirror Entity from your graveyard, it puts a counter on all your other creatures. And I guess I really like that it also triggers when it dies too. So it's like even like kind of good against removal sometimes. I don't think it's like super crazy good, but I kind of like the design.
Yeah, I think it's really solid. I think we're both a little bit in agreement that we don't love Anthem effects in Commander, because you'd rather just have creatures on board because they're always going to do something for you. And sure, they might get swept away in a board wipe, but this is nice that it fills. It's a early beater. Later in the game, it's effectively an Anthem sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you mostly share creature types, or if you do have that incidental changeling in your deck that you can exile.
Yeah, but like exiling something like just like a human or a cleric or something will usually put like a couple counters on your stuff, which is, solid.
Yeah, like a white deck, most of your creatures will probably be humans.
Humans, clerics, soldiers, something like that.
Yeah, there'll be
angels
overlap
maybe
for at least a couple of your creatures. So say you get this and then put 2 or 3 counters on creatures you have on board. That's like 5 or 6 power from 3 mana.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice.
And like I said before, I don't think it's crazy good or anything, but it's a card that I kind of like. For a person that likes to play 3-drops that deal damage, I like that it's an evasive option I can play.
So speaking of not crazy good, but I still like it a lot.
Oh, it's so cool.
Shepherd of the Cosmos. This is a 6-mana 3/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you return a permanent CMC 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it has a foretell cost of 4 for 3 and a white. And so this one, it's not nearly as good as Sun Titan, obviously.
Of course.
But the fact that it gets any permanent, so that can include lands, is nice for a lot of the same reason that Sun Titan is nice. Like I think Sun Titan, for me, oftentimes will get a land back, and I'll just use that as another way to ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't have that attack trigger either, but just having another like redundancy of effects for Sun Titan, because I think that's a big problem with white, that all your best cards don't really have much redundancy.
You have
right
one
now.
of them, yeah.
Yeah, there's the one card that does it, and you don't exactly have tutors for that card. So having another way to do the Sun Titan thing is really cool.
Yeah, it's not too terrible to like just foretell this on 2, do something else on 3, and then on turn 4 play it and get a land back. Like it's kind of like a Solemn, but instead of drawing a card when it leaves the battlefield, it's a 3/3 flyer.
Yeah, I think that might be arguably a thing that this might have up on Sun Titan is you can get that land engine going more quickly than Sun Titan. Like, sure, you will have to have another way to trigger the enter the battlefield effect, but like I have a Feather Blink deck, so I could see maybe foretelling this on 2, Feather on 3, foretell this on 4, get back my fetch land or whatever I used on turn 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then just repeatably blinking it and getting back lands.
And even being able to get back something like a Lightning Greaves or, some incidental 2-drop or whatever is pretty nice.
Yeah. So I think that's going to have
Yeah.
a spot in some blink-based decks.
Moving on from that, I guess, I want to talk about Righteous Valkyrie. This card is awesome. This is actually one of my favorite... I think this is my favorite card from the set. I love this card so much. This is a 3-mana 2/4 flyer, and when another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. And then it has... And the reason that it's got that ability is because the next ability is, as long as you have 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2.
It's a 3-mana 2/4 with flying.
And then it ends up being... And I think being able to activate that ability is super incidental. I don't think you need to play life gain cards in your deck, really, to play this.
Yeah, the first ability, it could almost not have that, and it would still be fine.
Yeah, and I think, like, just with a couple deck building inclusions, maybe a commander with lifelink or something, having that +2/+2 on your team, including itself, is really powerful. Like, there's a lieutenant card that gives your creatures... If you have your commander, it gives your creatures +2/+2 in haste. That card is really good, too. In red, I think. Or is that just your commander that it gives +2/+2? Is it all of them? I don't remember.
Yeah, your commander creatures +2/+2?
Yeah, just to the commander. This one gives it to all your creatures. So I could see, like, this can add, like, 8-10 damage pretty easily. And you get to play a lot of, like, cards you'd normally be playing in white, like Soul Sisters or, like, lifelink guys, like I said.
Yeah, it's a big anthem. You have to work for it a little bit, but most white decks, I think, will have some form of incidental life gain in there.
Yeah.
And getting to 7-up really isn't that hard. And you're pretty happy to have just a decent body until then.
Yeah, I think a 3-mana 2/4 flyer is a really, really, really good stat line for this kind of effect. It's awesome.
Yeah, that'll help protect your life total until you're ready to assemble that life gain engine.
Yeah, I'm not saying play, like, bad angels or clerics. Like, you just play the good ones and you're fine.
And then we got Search for Glory. So I was saying that there's not a lot of white tutors, but we just got another pretty decent one in Search for Glory. It's a 3-mana, search your library for a snow permanent card, a legendary card, or a saga card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. You gain 1 life for each snow mana spent to cast the spell. So that doesn't really matter that much. You don't need snow lands in your deck for this to work.
Yeah, the life gain on that is not important.
But a card I used to play in my Gisela deck was Call the Gatewatch, and this is just strictly better Call the Gatewatch now.
Yeah, there are probably a few decks where the saga part matters, but mostly it's for getting the legendary card or the snow permanent, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of strong legendary cards that you want to get. I mean, you could get Nykthos off of this.
Yeah, that's really cool. Even, like, late game, that could generate you mana if you get Nykthos. Like, if you're like a big board, like, that could be a draw a card plus a ritual.
Yeah, the fact that it says legendary card is really nice. So there's some equipment you could get. You could get any kind of planeswalker.
It could get a board wipe in, like, a deck that there's that snow board wipe in black. There's a couple of them. There's a new one, and there's the old one from...
Well, it just gets snow permanent.
Oh, so it does not get those.
But
My
you
bad.
could get Urza's Ruinous Blast.
That's
a
works.
legendary board wipe.
Yeah, that does it. I think there are some legendary creatures that are board wipe, but I'd have to look at that.
A saga that I've been really liking is Elspeth Conquers Death.
Yeah, that one
That's been
gets
really good
removal.
every time I played it.
Unfortunately, it's a sorcery, not an instant. Instant would be pretty good. I think the sorcery aspect of this just leaves this as a solid tutor, not like anything crazy.
Yeah, I might not even end up playing this card necessarily, but I think it's something that a lot of Commander players want to add more consistency.
It's a cool inclusion, I think, yeah.
Especially like a mono-white or a red-white deck might look at it.
All right, moving on from that, kind of try to go through some of these last ones a little bit quicker, but we've got Spectral Steel, which is a aura. Usually auras aren't great, but this aura has a cool ability where you can pay 2 mana and exile it from your graveyard to return another target aura or equipment from your graveyard to your hand. And then what the aura does is it's just a +2/+2 on enchanted creature. So I don't like the thing that I like about this card is that I think it's a good target to loot away with your looting effects in like red-white decks, because you always, if you can loot away something that has an additional like graveyard synergy, it's kind of like you're kind of like getting card advantage off that. And while the aura part of it isn't crazy, there's some decks that have like a lot of the equipment based commanders they've been putting recently have incidental synergy with auras, so it kind of fills that role of kind of being a good inclusion in that and doing that looting thing. I think the card's like okay and kind of cool actually.
Yeah, it's nice. You can play it for a power and toughness boost, and then later in the game, if your creature gets destroyed or you get board wiped, you can just play it, use that ability from your graveyard, and get something back.
Yeah, and one of the ways that I've found that I end up losing, I've got a Boros deck. Used to be oh god, Eli, what's the name of my commander?
Aurelia?
No, my
the original one.
Yeah,
Anya.
I couldn't even remember because Anya's kind of not amazing, but it used to be an Anya deck. But now I made it Aurelia. But the way that I would lose that when it was an Anya deck was that I would get my Lightning Greaves destroyed, and I wouldn't have any other sources of haste in my deck really that much. And being able to rebuy a Lightning Greaves with this in the late game can be very valuable, I think.
Yeah, there's lots of equipment that will eat some removal. And it's nice to have ways to get them back.
Yeah.
And then there's this last one I want to talk about. I don't have much to say about it. I don't know if I'll play it, but it's a neat new effect that's kind of been in white before, but now they've just made it a little bit better. And this is Starheim Courser. It's a 2/2 flying Pegasus. Makes artifact and enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. They've done this before on cards with enchantment spells costing 1 less to cast in white, which is very niche, but just about every deck will play artifacts in it, and cost reduction effects are oftentimes stronger than regular ramp, because if I play 3 artifacts on that turn, that just saved me 3 mana, or it produced 3 mana in a way. So I'm a pretty big fan of those, and sometimes they have some combo potential. So I like this card. I think I'd like it more if it was like a 2 mana 1/1. But I still thought it'd be notable.
Yeah,
talking about.
There's that 3 mana artifact creature that people play in like a lot of decks that reduces your artifacts costs, and this is kind of like a strictly better version of that with the flying and just being tethered to white. So I think it's actually pretty permissible.
Yeah,
I don't hate it.
And people are always saying, we need more ramp effects and stuff, and that's a way to do ramp that feels fine.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Okay, I promise. That's all the mono white cards
we
talk about.
Do we want?
Well, actually, we got 2 we might mention later.
Yeah, but that's from the commander deck. Do we want to just take a moment before we move on to blue and just talk about how like some of these cards aren't amazing, but like we talked about so many white cards here, like and I'll spoil it for you. Some of the other colors we only talk about 3 or 4 cards. Yeah,
and people have been really, really down on white lately, especially like midway through spoiler season for Kaldheim. That
Divine
Gambit got spoiled,
and
that's a card that I think when we see a set coming out and cards are getting previewed, we don't scrutinize we don't. Some people do, but you shouldn't scrutinize every single common and uncommon that gets spoiled through the lens of, is this good in Commander? They don't have to be. Magic is not made specifically for Commander. Not everything has to be for you.
This is very, very obviously a limited card, and anyone that doesn't see that, I think, is like kind of blind to that. Like, it's the most obvious limited card. People say this is even bad and limited. Even like limited resources, Marshall and LSV were talking about how this card is actually like a limited bomb. So people, I think, just like were kind of going crazy about this because they were upset about like one good card and another color getting printed and be like, white doesn't get anything good.
Yeah, aside from Commander, my favorite format is limited. And when I saw this previewed, I could see, like, at first I misread it and I thought you could do this on your own stuff. So I was kind of like, oh, that'd be cool for Commander.
Yeah.
But when I misread it, I was like, oh, whatever. It's an uncommon. It's not like they're previewing, like, this mythic rare, and even if they were previewing a mythic rare and we're like, oh my god, this is a really good card, and you saw that it wasn't for Commander, like Starheim Unleashed. We didn't talk about it. It makes a bunch of angels.
Not great, though.
Not great for Commander. Amazing for Limited.
Yeah.
Probably okay for some constructed formats. Not everything has to be for Commander. Magic is so much more than that.
We don't get mad every time they make like a bad blue card or whatever, but why are we getting mad every time they make a bad white card?
Yeah, people are just so riled up about white right now in Commander that I think they feel like every card just has to be something to help white in Commander, and that just, it shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't. If you treated every color like that, everyone would just hate Magic all the time.
Yep, but I think we should move on. Maybe save the white preaching for another episode. Yeah. Maybe we'll revisit because there's a lot of stuff to say about white. But this isn't a white podcast entirely, even if we may be a little bit biased because we like it. But not too many blue cards to talk about. But there are some cool ones that I like and that you like too.
Yeah, the first one. So personal thing, I kind of hate extra turn spells. I like it when they're 6+ mana. And not easily abused.
Yeah.
That's okay to me. Still, there's room to abuse them, but All Run's Epiphany, I think, is a really solid, fair, extra turn card in blue. It's 7 mana, target player, or it's create 2/1/1 blue bird tokens
and you
with
take
flying,
an extra turn.
and then take an extra turn after this one, you exile it. It has Foretell for 6.
It can't be redirected like some other extra turn spells where you get owned.
Oh yeah, in the post-deflecting SWAT world.
Yeah, oh my god. But yeah, I like when they make extra turn spells exile themselves. I think it's cool because like it's not super cheap, like you said. The birds I think are pretty incidental, but it's kind of a cool design. I like it.
Yeah, and I understand that like they always feel a little bit bad when they're cast against you, but like I like to think that I found the more fair way to look at extra turn spells, like in Casual Commander, as like, if I'm playing a non-red deck, and I'm playing like an aggro deck or a token deck, and I want extra combat effects, maybe you play an extra turn spell. It still kind of sucks because they're effectively free, and they draw you a card. We can talk about this on a different episode. I can do my rant against extra turn spells, but I think there are fair ways to use them, and I'm excited to use this personally in my Varina Lich Queen token decks. Just as another way to get that like extra combat effect, and it also makes 2 tokens for me, so maybe I can have my Anointed Procession or my the one that makes them into angels.
Yeah, Divine Visitation.
Divine Visitation, yeah.
I said that earlier on accident when we were talking about Divine Gambit. But yeah, so moving on to the next card, this is Mystic Reflection, a card that I think beating a lot of buzz. Everyone realizes how powerful this card is, and it's got some cool sharks on it. But other than that, it's an instant speed spell for 2 mana that you choose a non-legendary creature, and then the next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature, and it has Foretell for a single blue mana. So obviously there's like the synergy with stuff like Avenger of Zendikar, where you just make like a million Avenger Zendikars. Well, not make a million, but like wait, that does work, right? Like you just make all the tokens enter as Avenger Zendikars, and then make a bunch of tokens.
Believe so.
I believe that works. Yeah, but like even just like at like the very like base end, doubling up on some value creature you have is pretty powerful for just 1 or 2 mana depending on how you cast it.
Yeah, I also like this defensively, like using against your opponents when they go to cast their big creature, and you're like, no, that's a mana dork now. It's kind of nice to fill that counter spell roll too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess you can. I didn't realize you could use it on your opponent's stuff.
Yeah, or if they play a big planeswalker, they pay 8 mana for Ugin, and you want to avoid the board wipe, you make that
turns into
somebody's commander.
That's kind of cool. Wow, I didn't even realize that. But yeah, this card I think is obvious. Like people like see the combos of this as being kind of crazy. I like the non-combos.
It's also good to just it's non-legendary creature.
Yeah, sad. But well, maybe you can make.
Oh wait, no, you can make somebody's commander enter as you target.
Yeah. You can make their commander enter as another creature.
Yeah, so that's an interesting way to stop commanders too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, neat.
And of course, being only 1 mana for after you foretell it. Like, really, really awesome. I love that effect. And then the last card we're going to talk about for blue, like I said, not too many. We're not digging the Orvar form too much, but Raven form. This is a card that made big big discussions online, I think, about because they're like, oh my god, this should have been...
There's a white card!
Well, you may disagree that this isn't the type of thing that Blue should be doing, but this is a thing that Blue does, and you have to just understand that. Blue does the polymorph type effect of destroying or exiling creatures and giving them creatures in return. That's just... they've done it so many times, it's what they do.
Yeah. Nobody complains about Curse of the Swine.
And that card's awesome, too.
Yeah, that's stronger than this. I think that's a lot stronger than this.
I think so, too. Obviously, this gets to hit artifacts. That's nice flexibility, but this card does cost a lot of mana. It does have the Foretell to make it a little bit nicer, but, like...
Yeah, I think it's the artifact part of this card that really makes people upset, because they can see, like, Curse of the Swine existed, but now that they put the artifact or creature...
They're like, this should be white.
White doesn't do... Or blue doesn't do that.
White does that. White kills artifacts and creatures. I think this card is pretty good. Like, I think it's definitely, like, playable for sure, but I think people are overhyping it. I think I would consider it in a mono blue deck, but, like, I think a lot of times it just doesn't make the cut, because you're just like, I want to play the 1 mana cost interaction, and then, like, there's also 2 mana cost exile in blue, and, like, how many slots do you have? Like, I think you like, this is, like, on the chopping block, I think, in your builds. Like, it's a card you'll be like, do I really want to play this? Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah.
Not an auto-include.
The people thinking that this card is too strong, or it shouldn't have been a blue card, is this good enough for your blue decks? If it is, fine, that's you can have that opinion, but I honestly don't know if it's better than anything you already had.
Yeah, there's a lot of good blue cards. I don't know if this is better than them. But, so yeah, I guess similar to what we did with white, just to kind of overview quick on these blue cards, there are I noticed that I felt like there were only, like, we didn't talk about all the powerful blue cards, but there were only, like, maybe 6 commander playable blue cards or so in the set that I felt, and 3 of them, I didn't really want to talk about because they're not super exciting for me. Like Reflections of Lit Jara, like the creature type thing. I don't really care about that.
And there are cards that I think, obviously, I wouldn't think anything wrong of the people playing them.
Yeah.
But they're just not better than stuff that already exists.
Which is, I think, it's kind of like people always say blue always gets the best cards, green always gets the best cards, but I think in this set, blue and green, not to jump ahead, I don't think got too many powerful cards. Like,
yeah, at least not for Commander.
Less than black, red, and white for sure. So, yeah, I guess moving on, do you want to talk about the first black card we have here?
Yeah, first up we have Blood on the Snow. It's a 6 mana snow sorcery. It's modal. You choose one, destroy all creatures or destroy all planeswalkers. And then you return a creature or planeswalker with CMC X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast the spell. So it's an interesting new black wrath effect. I don't think we've seen like too many black wraths in standard, at least, like recently.
No, not too many. The thing that I like about this card is that it's kind of expensive for a wrath spell. You usually don't want to play 6 mana, but this is like kind of a wrath plus like a value card, or like it's a way to rebuild your board after a wrath. So it's kind of got like a cool niche for it there, where you like wrath and like bring back your big guy. Or the thing I like even more about it, if you want to be a little bit like degenerate, is you can play your Blood on the Snow and get back like an E-Witness or something, and then get your Blood on the Snow back, and you can just do that every turn. Which is kind of a little bit annoying to play against, but like I think that there is some power in that.
This goes right into Zhao Dun, the One-Eyed.
Yeah.
You know that guy?
No, I don't.
He's like the Black Ewit. He's like a 4 mana black legendary. You sacrifice him and you return a black card from your graveyard to your hand.
Oh my god.
So if you have him as your commander, you Blood on the Snow, he dies, you bring him back.
You
sack him.
Oh, and then
Blood on the Snow, get him back.
That's cool. Well, that goes infinite with omniscience, and then you could. I'm sorry, that's so dumb. Everything goes infinite with omniscience. Oh, okay. So moving on. This is a little bit of a cringe card, but I think it's got a soft spot in my heart. I don't think anybody's looking at this card being like, this card's awesome, except for me. And this is Blood Sky Berserker. This is a 2 mana 1/1 that says, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gets menace until the end of the turn. So, normally, I think in Commander, creatures that like are just like there to attack and stuff like that aren't very good. Like usually you want them to be drawing cards or affecting your opponent's board or something. But this card is just kind of cool for me because it gets really big without too much work in in certain kinds of decks that play like a lot of small things. So one example is you can play like adventure cards. One of my favorites is the red one that destroys an artifact, Embereth Shieldbreaker. So you can just hear me out here. You can go on turn 3, play Bloodsky Berserker, and then the smash part of Embereth Shieldbreaker, and then it's already a 3/3. And then next turn you just play like your removal spell and like a 3-drop, and then it's a 5/5 attacking. It was only for 2 mana, or you can even play the other half of the Embereth Shieldbreaker.
Yeah, and I think in black you should have the card advantage available to consistently play 2 spells per turn.
Yeah, and like you don't even have to like play 2 spells like on like you can play this on 3 and then or on a later turn, like on like turn 6, play this and then like a 4-drop, and like that still triggers it. You don't need to play 2 after you play it. It's just your second spell. So I just kind of like that this card is cheap, and I think you'll notice that it gets pretty big. Like, pretty easily. I think this card easily becomes like a 7/7 attacking with Menace for 2 mana. And yeah. I think that's kind of a thing. So, I don't think it's like a crazy good card, but I just wanted to mention it because I have a really soft spot in my heart for this card. I think it's cool. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the Menace is really cool as well. But you want to talk about the next card, Eli?
Okay, the next one. So, when I started playing Magic, a really cool card that me and my friends liked a lot was Rune-Scarred Demon. And now we have the Burning Rune Demon, which is like the super Rune-Scarred Demon. It's 1 less mana. This is only 6 mana. It's a 6/6 flying. And I feel like, personally, like, maybe it's just my OCD, but the difference between 6 and 7 feels like a lot to me.
It is a lot.
Like, I like to kind of top my curve off of a lot of decks off at 6. And the fact that this is a 6/6 flying, that's also, like, that's kind of like Vanilla Test Plus. So that's a rate that you like. Like, 7 mana 6/6 flying doesn't seem so great. But then when this enters the battlefield, you can search for 2 cards with different names, not named Burning Rune Demon, which doesn't matter for us. And then you reveal them. An opponent chooses one of them. You put the chosen card in your hand and the other card into your graveyard, and shuffle your library. So you probably can't always get what you want, but say you're like just looking for a removal spell. You'll have 2 removal spells in your deck. Yeah. So you can always get one if you have like that redundancy of effects, or you can search for like 2 creatures that are good, but you're fine reanimating 2 in black. One's going to go in your graveyard, and that's a pretty easy zone to access in a black deck.
Yeah, or you do the trick if you get the you get the 2 cards that have like graveyard effects or something, and then like they're kind of owned either way. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a pretty big fan of that card. I think it's a good reanimate target, good for doing reanimator shenanigans, and I like blinking stuff and recurring stuff. I have my mono black deck is a Gonti Lord of Luxury, so it already does a lot of that blink stuff, and how you do that in black oftentimes is just reanimating a card a bunch of times.
You sack it and then bring it back.
Yeah, you sack it, bring it back, and so I think that card's going to be a lot of fun for that.
Yeah. Our next card is Dream Devourer. This is a cool new card that is a 2 mana 0/3, and it gives your cards, non-lands cards in your hand without foretell equal to their mana cost -2, and it's got like an incidental ability of when you foretell a card, it gets +2/+0 until end turn.
Yeah, so that part probably doesn't matter that much. It'll maybe make it a 2/3 or a 4/3 every once in a while, which is kind of neat since it's only 2 mana.
Yeah, I kind of want to think of this as just like an artifact or an enchantment that does this. Obviously it's a creature, so it blocks and attacks. I mean, sometimes it attacks, I guess, but like I want to think of this more as like just like an artifact or enchantment that does that ability. And then with that being said, how good is it? What do you think?
Yeah, because it doesn't really save you any mana overall, because you're paying 2 for the foretell, and then it's reducing the cost by 2. So you're neutral on that. But what it does do is allow you to spend your mana maybe more efficiently with that foretell ability. Like you can, if you have like a 6 mana spell and a 4 mana spell, you can foretell the 6 mana one, and then like
play it earlier
on like turn 8. Yeah, you play it earlier. Like it lets you like just mess with how you spend your mana.
Yeah,
and I kind of like that.
You can play a Bolus of Citadel on turn 4 if you want, or something.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like super powerful, but it's kind of an interesting thought, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to do ramp, and I'm always excited to see like very interesting like mechanical designs, especially like with the sets mechanic.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, next we got Eradicator Valkyrie, which is a 4-mana 4/3 with flying, lifelink, and hexproof from Planeswalkers. I don't know if that's gonna the hexproof from Planeswalkers is super relevant, but it's something. And it's got bow stability, which is if it's attacked this turn, you can pay 2 mana and sacrifice a creature and make each opponent, I suppose, sack a creature or planeswalker. So it's got like that edict effect on itself.
Yeah, a repeatable edict.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, doing that every turn. I think there's some decks that'll just totally...
They just scooped at that, right?
Yeah, it's backbreaking.
It's real bad. And
a very efficient body. Hexproof from Planeswalkers, yeah, it seems like something that wouldn't come up that often, but I just played a game recently where somebody had the Corset 2021 Teferi that can phase out a creature.
Yeah.
A lot of Planeswalkers will have like a removal mode on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really nice to be able to kind of dodge that.
Yeah, especially with like the new Valky coming out and stuff, people are going to want to be playing Planeswalkers. So, and there's like a lot of cool ones that came out recently as well. So I don't know, it is relevant, but like
yeah,
you're not playing it for that.
It could probably not even be on there and it'd be a fun card.
Yeah, and so putting incidental lifelink on creatures, especially creatures with flying, I think is kind of underrated. So I like that about it. But yeah, I think this card is pretty powerful for sure.
All right, then we got Rise of the Dread Marn. For 2 and a black, it's an instant. Create X, 2/2 black, zombie berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn, and it has a foretell cost of just 1 black.
Yeah, I alluded to this card a bit earlier when we were talking about foretell, but I think this card is probably a little bit flying a bit under the radar. It kind of does, if you've ever played with Color of the Claw, which is a green card, you'd notice that card is like kind of awkward because it costs 3 mana to flash it in and like kind of rebuild your board when you get board wiped. But the thing with this one is it's only 1 mana to flash it out, so you have to keep 1 mana up. And this also affects all creatures that died, well, all non-token creatures that died on the whole board, not just your board. So I can see the play pattern of playing a board wipe with 1 mana up and then playing this after your board wipe, or just holding 1 black mana up for when your opponent's board wipe and making a board of like 7 or 8 2/2s. On an instep or something.
I think the ability to pair this with your own board wipes very easily for just that 1 extra mana. Like you could play a Damnation, and for 1 more mana, it leaves you with maybe 5 to 10 zombies afterwards.
Yeah, because the reason, the thing, whenever a board wipe comes down, the first thing you want to do is rebuild. And if you can do that for 1 mana and like make a very threatening board off of that, it's pretty powerful, I'd say. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, what's it called? The 5 mana, return all creatures that died this turn to the battlefield under your control from Battle Bond.
Oh yeah, Thrilling Encore.
Thrilling Encore. It kind of reminds me of that card, except except it's like you only have to hold. Thrilling Encore is backbreaking, but you have to hold up 5 mana to do it.
Yeah, 5 mana is so hard to hold up. I mean, it's well worth it if you can do it, but I think it's interesting to see more in the space of like Black's version of board protection for decks that want to go wide and have a big board presence of creatures.
And I like go wide decks. And even if you're not in a go wide deck, if you're just playing like board wipe tribal or something, like you punish your opponents for playing a lot of creatures.
Yeah,
it's a cool card.
So Black got some good stuff.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to leave out cards. Like we're not talking about Tegrid. Tegrid's a great card. Don't like it too much.
Yeah, Tegrid. Be afraid of Tegrid. She is the god of fright.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't let it happen to you. Just be aware of that. I think everyone kind of should understand that.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about that's not our jam.
But Black did pretty well, other than maybe some powerful commanders that they got. Moving on, we got Red coming up, and Red's got some cool stuff in it too. Some pretty unique cards, I think, as well.
This card's so good, but it's so expensive now. It's like, I think it's almost $20.
Oh my god.
Goldspan Dragon. 3 and a red. It's a 4/4 flying haste. So that's already like really good body.
Yeah. Stormbreath Dragon stats.
And when it attacks, or becomes the target of a spell. I almost forgot that it had that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Create a treasure token. And treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact. Add 2 mana of any one color. So when it attacks, you get 2 mana. So the turn you play it, it's effectively like 3 mana. Like it refunds you 2 right away.
Yeah. And oh my god, this card's so good. Like it's and it even pairs with like your expedite type cards if you want to go for like a storm route that like draw you, they like, you know, target a thing and draw you a card, and then you get like, 2 mana back from it.
Really what I need this for is my Feather Blink deck, because I could just play it, swing in, get the treasure, and then use that treasure to blink it if somebody goes to remove it. And if they go to remove it, you're going to get another treasure. So like,
and they tap for 2, and you get your blink card back if it's, you know, feather.
Yeah, it's
just
so great.
Yeah.
So much mana. I think red is like, people have got to stop saying anything about red and Commander, because at least like between last year and like stuff like this, it's really like red is fine.
People are like they're getting that, but like Jesus Christ, it's crazy.
Red gets crazy ramp. They get card advantage. And you know what else they got? I'm maybe gonna skip a card here on our list, but they got counter spells now.
They do.
Tybalt's Trickery, 1 and a red, counter target spell.
There's more.
So there's more, but still, like it counters the spell. That spell is stopped. Then you choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their deck until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exile cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. So it is a counterspell. Do you think that downside on there is worth like ever not playing that against somebody if you really need to? Like, if you need to survive?
No, the way that I see this card being played is this isn't a card that you use to counter like just like a something that's kind of bad. You use this as like a way to stop someone from winning the game, or like counter some like explosive play, I think.
Yeah, like protect your boards. Like if somebody goes to Cyclonic Rift you now have another way to stop that within red or like Boros.
Then they hit their Wrath of God. But you know, I think this card's really cool. It has that interesting thing that it does where it makes them mill around a number of cards, so it has like that they can't like Vampiric Tutor in response to like get the best card in their deck.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way that you can like totally abuse this card. Like the other day, I got one of these and I slotted it into my Gisela deck right away, and I mulliganed to a really bad hand, but I had an Everflowing Chalice with Tybalt's Trickery, and I was like, I've got to go for it. I had to try it.
Yeah.
And I counter my spell, and I mill until I get Teferi's Protection. So I think the odds that somebody ever gets something like actually like really good off of this, it's like, you know, Chaos Warp.
Yeah.
You know, people play a certain amount of just small, low CMC spells and a lot of like mana rocks and just card draw effects in their decks. So oftentimes what you're countering is going to be way better than what they get off of it.
You know, I saw a Twitter video when this card was spoiled. It was like a CEDH, let me see what happens if I like make a CEDH board state and then counter someone's spell and see what happens, right? And like, they put like a, you know, there was like a graveyard, like they set up like a game. They had like, you know, they made a board state, a graveyard. They're like, this card, you know, they were like, you know, playing it up. This card has like really bad odds to do anything. Like it's really good. It doesn't like have any good odds to do anything bad, and they do it, and then the guy hits it's like the most backbreaking card they can. They were like countering it ad nauseum, and they hit like what's it called? The card from Alpha that lets you cast all the cards from your graveyard for, you know, this turn.
Oh, Yawgmoth's
They had a Yawgmoth's and it was funny. But that's not the average case for this card. I think it's quite good.
Yeah, I think you're going to be pretty safe using it, and I think this might be a card that I try and put in most of my red decks just to have that way to interact on the stack, because when people talk about like what colors can and can't remove, they always say like
blue's the only color that gets to...
Blue can't remove artifacts and enchantments. Well, really, it can in the form of counterspells and bouncing, and really I like to look at it this way. Blue is the only color that can interact with instants and sorceries. It has removal for instants and sorceries. That's what a counterspell is.
Yeah.
And now you have... There's some white cards that counter spells,
They're
like
not
Lapse
great,
of Certainty and Mana Tithe and stuff. But now the ability to do that better, and also in red, I think is very useful.
Yeah. You know, cards like Pyroblast are really good, even if they're like very...
Oh yeah, you'll play Pyroblast in like higher power settings in just about every deck.
Yeah.
And this has more versatility for lower power or different metas.
Yeah. Next, I guess, going back, we got Quakebringer. This is a new big boy they printed. It's a 5-mana 5/4. And it has the static ability. Your opponents can't gain life. That ability that's on the Black God from Theros, whatever it's called, Erebos.
Yeah.
And also it has, much more relevant, it's got, at the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield, or if it's in your graveyard and you control a giant. And it's got Foretell for 4 as well. So, I'm not much of a tribal player myself. This isn't going to make me play giants in my deck. But there are a couple incidental giants that you will play in red decks, Inferno Titan, Sun Titan, all the other Titans, Grave Titan, stuff like that. But, just being able to deal 2 damage each of your opponents every turn, and then, getting that incidental value of doing it even after it dies, it's kind of a cool card. I think I like this a lot.
Yeah, that adds up, and stopping your opponents from gaining life can have some value. It'll stop Aetherflux Reservoir from functioning.
Everyone hates that card.
Potentially getting this out on turn 4, too, is also, I think, a pretty big deal.
Pretty big.
That adds you another turn to trigger that upkeep ability.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, if you have just Sun Titan later in the game,
or
this will trigger from your graveyard, so that's additional utility.
Or if you're playing a Kalemne deck, or something where your commander's a giant, it kind of... it's a cool card. I like it. I think it's probably...
top 10 giants?
top 10? Well... If you count all the shapeshifters, it might not be. But, Chameleon Colossus is top 10 giant, you know what I'm saying? But top 10 giants, yeah. Next, we got the big boy. I guess I said that about that giant, but this guy's really the big boy.
Oh my god, he's also a 5/4.
Yeah. Toralf, God of Fury, / Toralf's Hammer. Do you want to read this card, Eli?
Yeah, he's a 5/4 trample. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. Any target, so he can redirect it from a creature to another creature, or a planeswalker. It doesn't have to just be a player, so it's not exactly like Repercussion,
Yeah, this card is actually super crazy. The power level of this card is kind of off the charts, I think. Being the obvious synergy with this card is cards like Blasphemous Act or Star of Extinction, where if there are just a couple creatures in play, you kill the table. You don't need that much, honestly, for you to kill the table. It's pretty low.
Yeah,
requirement.
As a commander, be very afraid of this card. It's probably a commander you'll have to hold up removal for. But I like the idea of just throwing it incidentally into decks or even equipment decks, because it's got this other side where it's an equipment for 1 in red. Toralf's Hammer. A equipped creature has 1 in a red, tap unattached Toralf's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target, then return the hammer to its owner's hand, and the equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. So again, kind of...
And equipped for 2.
Yeah, equipped for 2. Kind of decent in a Voltron deck. +3/+0 is alright. Being able to use that, it's not a very efficient rate if you have to activate that ability to deal 3 to something, but sometimes you will need to kill a combo piece or a planeswalker or something pretty easily. And I kind of like the synergy of being able to do that. If you have if you're flooded or something, you have a SRAM or a Pure Steel Paladin out, you can just keep recasting the hammer and drawing cards. Yeah. Using it to remove stuff.
And it's kind of protection for itself, because if there's a single target removal for it, you can bounce it to your hand if your creature's untapped and can tap.
Yeah, and if you want that early in the game as the hammer...
3 is kind of a lot.
And then later in the game, you draw your Blasphemous Act. You're just throw the hammer at something, bring it back to my hand.
Win the game.
Now I play Toralf and win the game.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Winning the game's good, so I'd recommend that, yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend winning the game. Try it.
It's a lot less oppressive in the 99, because it's not, you're not building your deck centered around it, and it's not
it doesn't give you a 1-card combo.
You don't just always, do the same thing every game. So that's kind of cool. So Red got, we didn't talk about too many of them, but high power.
I think they're all... Quakebringer may be less strong than the rest of the list, but...
The other 3.
They're all really strong cards.
Yeah. So we got green here. First green card we want to talk about. It's a big boy, big elephant. I like me some elephants.
The Battle Mammoth.
Unfortunately not an Alara elephant, but...
I give it points for being an elephant.
Elephant's cool.
I don't know about you, but I think that's the way to go.
No rhino. I like me a siege rhino, but it's a 5-mana 6/5 with trample, so obviously, you got that big body in green. That's what they do. And then it's got Foretell for 4 mana, so you could play it on as early as turn 4 for a 6 mana or a 4 mana 6/5 with trample, And then it's got this kind of pseudo protection ability that says, whenever any permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. I think there's like I want to say it's like Shaper's Sanctuary. There's like a...
Yep, there's a 1-mana enchantment that does that.
And that card's usually doesn't make the cut in any deck because like it doesn't really do anything on its own.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, you'll just draw like 1 or 2 cards off of that, and it won't be that useful. It'll take a long time for that to trigger, not particularly early, or great in the early game, but Battle Mammoth, I think if you even just use your Battle Mammoth to pressure somebody, unless they board wipe, they're going to have to go to remove it eventually.
It's probably not going to die to combat. Especially early in the game.
Or if you have a high priority commander, or like we were talking about those just incidental ways, like when we were talking about the shield, where people will like use their triggered and activated abilities to try and mess with your stuff.
Yeah, like a Rec Sage to kill your swords or whatever,
Yeah, because this
Zendikar
is whenever
Resurgent.
A permanent you control becomes a target of spell
it
ability.
protects your enchantments.
So I don't know, like not that... You might not play this in a deck with like Gaia's Cradle, because that's a crazy card, but somebody's going to destroy that.
Yeah, that's...
You'll draw a card.
The baseline for this card is very good. It draws card, like you're not playing it to draw cards, like, I mean, you're not playing it with the plan to draw multiple cards off it, but like it's an efficient creature that will incidentally draw you cards.
The question on my mind is this a Chumbo?
I think it might be a Chumbo.
For Chumbo Tribal?
Yeah,
I think it might be.
That's your Chumbo Tribal's your deck of Chumbos, where it's a bunch of big brawly dudes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my crush deck.
Yeah. It's kind of a Chumbo. I mean, it's not a a humanoid, but elephants can be Chumbos, I guess. Yeah. Our next green card is Masked Vandal. This is what I alluded to earlier when I said I wanted to talk about cards that I don't like. So this might be a really hot take because there was a lot of buzz, I think, on Twitter about Masked Vandal being like as good or even almost as good as Reclamation Sage.
Why isn't this a white card?
There was also that. There was a lot of complaint about this not being a white card. I think my hot take here is Masked Vandal is okay to bad. I think this card doesn't do what you put it in your deck to do.
It looks a lot better than it is.
I think so. So I guess we should read it. Masked Vandal is a 2-mana 1/3 changeling. And it's got the ability, when it enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard, and if you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls.
So I think some people see that, and they're like, oh, exile target artifact or enchantment, and it's 2 mana? It's better than Rec Sage in 2 different ways. And it's a changeling, so it's an elf too.
Yeah, but it's really, like it is better in that it exiles. That is relevant sometimes. But the real problem with this card is that the best thing about Rec Sage is that it's super versatile. It lets if someone plays a Rhystic Study on turn 3, you want to play your Rec Sage and kill it. This cannot do that. You will not have a creature in your graveyard on turn 2.
Yeah, this might be 2 mana, but is it a 2-drop?
This is not even close to a 2-drop, unless you want to play your Stitcher Supplier or your Spore Frog and sacrifice it for a terrible value.
Yeah, well, the decks that you're going to be able to exile that creature consistently are the decks that want that creature in your graveyard and not exiled.
Yeah.
So this is a weird mix of those abilities. Like, maybe I could see putting it in an elf deck and having just another way to do that, because your creatures will die.
Sure, late in the game this card is good, but I want to have my artifact and enchantment removal when I need it. If my opponent plays a Smothering Tithe, I don't want to look at this in my hand and say, I put this in my deck instead of a Krosan Grip or whatever. That is really bad.
So the deck I could see this being played in is something like a Marin deck or a Muldrotha deck.
Of course, yeah.
But what's the main enchantment that you want to destroy and remove in those decks if it gets played against you? It's Rest in Peace. You cannot destroy Rest in Peace with this.
It's really sad.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So, and even in those decks, you can't just exile a land. You have to exile a creature from your graveyard. And decks that care about their graveyard, almost all the time, it's for recurring creatures. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know. So I really am down on this card. It's not terrible. It's got the Changeling synergy. It'll be good late, but it is not better than Rec Sage. Not even close.
It's playable, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that put it in their decks and then find that they're never able to exile something with it.
If you're playing this in your deck and you're not playing a, Nature's... the 1-mana cost instant. Nature's Claim. If you're playing this and not playing Nature's Claim, I think you're making a big mistake.
Yeah.
Nature's Claim is the best, maybe paired with Rec Sage, and it's much better than this card.
So let's talk about a good card.
Yeah.
Best squirrel.
Okay, so don't get mad at me, guys, but I think squirrels in Magic are a little bit cringe. Now, it's okay if you like them. I'm not going to hate on you for liking them. I'm a big fan of not hating people or hating things people like or hating them for liking things, but I'm not a big squirrel guy.
Squirrel's just an old school Magic meme at this point, I think, from like way back in like Urza's block and stuff.
But I'm not here to meme on squirrels and hate on squirrels, but Toski, Bearer of Secrets, I gotta say, I'm kind of down with this squirrel. This is an effect that I love.
Yeah. 4 mana, 1/1, can't be countered, indestructible, attacks each combat if able, whatever. That's
fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
People will compare this to Edric, Spymaster of Trest, and I think that's a really bad comparison because the worst thing about Edric is it lets your opponents draw cards. This does not.
And Edric, known to be very powerful.
Yeah.
With that big downside.
Yeah, and so I think a more apt comparison to this is Orin Frostfang. I think Orin Frostfang is better because it has a better body and it gives you that death touch, which is often very valuable, but this has the upside of being indestructible, so not like weak to removal, and coming down a turn early. I like playing decks that do this sort of effect where they play Mana Dorks and they attack with their Mana Dorks to draw cards or something else like that. Even like, Managorger Hydra type stuff. It has Trample, so you'll probably get the hit off. This card's awesome. I love it.
And I personally feel like, almost like this spell can't be countered is better than the Indestructible, because if I'm playing a deck with counter spells, I will often try and save my counter spell for the play that my opponent uses to gain card advantage.
The card advantage spell, yeah.
So that I'm not going... So that I can say to myself, well, I'm using this counter spell in a way that it is card advantage for me.
Yeah.
But you cannot counter a Toski. If somebody has their big board of small creatures and they go in and they go to play Toski, try and refill their hand out, because oftentimes the problem of a go-away deck is that you spend out your resources from your hand and you put everything on board. This will fill your hand back up afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in the Toski as your commander kind of Voltron theme or whatever. That doesn't really appeal to me at all. This kind of is more of a card that I love in the 99. So this will probably go in my Cheval Bane of Monsters deck, which is kind of like an elf ball type thing. It'll probably go in my Jared Conclave Exile, so because that has a lot of trample rhinos that can get in. Stuff like that I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's Toski's super solid.
Yeah, so that's actually it for the green cards that we're talking about. Only 3 of them. There are, some other, obviously, you've got the Praetor, and a couple other things.
Yeah, old Vorinclex.
But
hey, well, say one thing about Vorinclex. Be careful playing that against persist creatures.
Yeah,
watch out.
They're going to go infinite with a Murderous Red Cap because of your card. But
they're going to get you.
I guess I don't want to talk about Vorinclex that much, but I just want to mention something about it real quick because obviously that's a big spotlight of the set. It's very iconic. I don't really like the design of doubling season effects. I think they're not especially with Planeswalkers. I think it's kind of unfun. I'm usually not a guy that's I don't dislike unfun things or whatever. I'm not going to hate you for playing it, but I think that playing Planeswalkers and immediately ultimating them is kind of boring and not cool, personally. It doesn't appeal to me at all. So that's why I don't really like Vorinclex that much, personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, not here to shit on Vorinclex. It's got haste, which is weird. But moving on, I guess we talk about the other cards, the multicolored cards to move on from. Our first card is Valki, God of Lies / Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter.
Yeah, so Valki on the front side is a 2-mana 2/1 Black God. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand, so you get to see all your opponent's hands right away. That's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. For each opponent, exile a creature card they revealed this way until Valki leaves the battlefield. And then for X, you can choose a creature card with exiled with Valki with converted mana cost X, and Valki becomes a copy of that card. So he won't switch. He can't do that again, apparently, because he just becomes a straight copy of whatever he chooses.
Keep it. Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't keep that ability. So that's... I can't think of too many cards where that'll be that great. What's the thing that he could copy, you think?
Where
that, in Commander, that doesn't have Because I think most people play their creatures...
ETB effects,
yeah,
right?
for like enter the battlefield effects or like something else like that.
I mean, I guess you could... I mean, if you get someone's, like, like their, someone has like a Nezahal or something, that could be very good,
Yeah, maybe like stealing somebody's ramp creature, like a Bloom Tender or something. So you throw them off, like they obviously keep their hand based off of certain cards.
Yeah, the best thing is you want to copy things that are low mana cost, because obviously, like I said, I said Nezahal, but that's like 7 mana and you have to pay 7 for it. But like small things could be valuable, right? Or even just like hitting a mana dork or something. Like if they play like a tap land on turn 1, then you like play this and get their Elvish Mystic or something. And then you just like pay 1, like you get the effect where you exile a card from their hand till it leaves, then you make it into a mana dork. Like that's not bad. Like that seems okay, right?
Yeah, I think obviously when he leaves the battlefield, they get those cards back, but just even taking 1 card from each of your opponents for a couple of turns early in the game,
yeah,
that could have a big impact.
I've got, before we move on to the flip side, I've got some secret tech for you with Valky. If you build a Valky deck, you might want to consider playing the card Wasteland Strangler. This card's really cool. It's a Eldrazi processor, and it's a 3 mana 3/2, I think. And when it enters the battlefield, you can return a card from exile, a card opponent controls in exile to their graveyard, and give a creature -3/-3 until end of turn. So the sequence is you play Valky, you exile, a card from each opponent's hand, then they, someone plays their commander, then you play Wasteland Strangler, you put the card from exile into their graveyards, they don't get it back when Valky dies, and you kill a creature.
I like that.
Yeah. There aren't really any other good processors except for that one. But...
that's a nice interaction on curve if he's your commander.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about playing that with like there's like an Orzhov card that does this kind of effect, and like Brain Maggot. There's like a bunch of black white cards that do this, but when it's in your command zone and it comes on consistently on turn 2, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so that's a neat effect. But I think
the better
half is Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter. It's a 7 mana Rakdos Planeswalker, and as he enters the battlefield, you get an emblem with, you may play cards exiled with Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. And he starts with 5 loyalty. He has a +2 ability, exile the top card of each player's library, -3, exile target artifact or creature, and -8, exile all cards from all graveyards, add red. So that +2, that's effectively... draw 4 cards.
Yeah, if you can protect him at all or whatever, it is great. It even counts you.
You don't need to protect him.
Oh, true. Oh, it's an emblem.
He gives you the emblem.
You're right. My bad.
So you immediately, like, even if he dies, like, immediately after you do that, you still got 4 cards.
Yeah, and if you plus it a couple times, and then the -8 doesn't seem great, but like if you -8, like for the rest of the game, you get to play every card in every graveyard for the rest of the game.
And I believe that when he does the -8, if he was at 8 loyalty...
oh, he would go to the graveyard and...
he exiles himself.
He does, so you can play
him again.
And then you
can play him back.
Oh my god, that's true.
So that's kind of amazing.
That's cool.
And the exile target artifact or creature, like sure, like you're going to do that one time, and that doesn't seem that great for 7 mana, but then you can play that card that you exiled, which I'm assuming is pretty good if you spent 7 mana to exile it.
Yeah, but this card's really cool. I really like the design of giving you that emblem, so you don't a lot of these cards that let you play things from exile, usually do it for as long as you control that creature or whatever. They have like a static ability that does it. I like that this lasts forever.
Yeah, there's no timing restriction on this.
It's awesome.
You just get those cards.
Yeah. And of course, this being a Rakdos card means the whole, some people might be confused about the color identity. It's a Rakdos commander. If you play it as your commander, you have to be, you have to be in a Rakdos deck, or it makes your deck Rakdos if he's your commander. But yeah, this card I think is really cool. Unfortunately, it's like $30 card or something right now, $25 because it's seeing play in standard and modern stuff.
Maybe they should just change the rules so it's not abusive.
I don't know why Cascade lets you cast the backside for free. That seems weird.
They have different rules for like split cards and like flip cards and other stuff, but like the modal DFCs they decided would function that way.
Yeah, that seems kind of dumb.
I don't know how they didn't think of that, because playing a 3 mana Cascade spell into Tibalt Cosmic Imposters, obviously a bad thing.
I don't think that's what they want for the design of it. I don't like that very much personally.
Yeah, so hopefully they change that rule so he stops hurting other formats, and we can afford Tibble.
Yeah, I would like to play one, but I'm not going to pay $30 for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Tibble's awesome. But our next card is a card that I have a great love for. It's the
Epic Me Likey.
It's the first saga of a list, and it's called Furia. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. But Furia. I'm going to say
it's Furia's.
Furia's Retribution. This is a 4-mana cost saga. If I can find it on my phone here. I found it. There we go. And it says, when it enters the battlefield, the first lore counter is create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So it makes a Serra Angel. So it's 4 mana, right away make a Serra Angel.
Yeah, pretty good for 4 mana.
Before I move on, I just want to say that I think that the thing that I dislike about sagas is when they don't get their value right away. I hate when it's like on the second or third chapter when you don't get what you want out of it. This gives you, it's very upfront. You get your value, your mana's worth right away. So you get a 4/4 white angel with flying and vigilance. The second turn, it has the ability that says, until the end of your turn, angels you control have tap, destroy target creature with power less than this creature's power. So it makes your angel that made the previous turn tap to kill a 3, 2, or 1 power creature.
Yeah, so you can, and it's got vigilance too, so you can swing in and then do that ability.
Yeah, so already this is good, like, advantage, right? Like, it's already, you're getting, on curve, you're getting a good creature, and then you're killing a creature next turn. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is angels you control gain double strike until end of turn. I think this is less important, but it can incidentally synergize with your other angels and just do 8 damage with this one.
Say
it's okay.
Your commander's an angel, or you're playing a couple other incidental angels.
Like that 2/4 we were talking about that has the angel synergy.
If you make the Liesa deck, are you going to play this card in there?
For sure, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Liesa has lifelink too, so double strike lifelink.
Yeah, so the curve that I was thinking of was that 2/4 that gives you creatures +4 or +2/+2 if you have a bunch of life.
Oh yeah.
So you play that on turn 3. It's a 2/4. Next turn you play Furia's Retribution. You get the angel. You gain 4 life because of that 3-drop.
Yeah.
Next turn, both of your angels can tap to kill creatures with them if you want to. The next turn, and you play like your commander, which also is an angel and gains you 5 life. It's on already. So, like, that turn, you're attacking for, what is that? 10 damage with just your angel token and your 2/4. That's a 4/6 now.
Yeah.
And then on the next turn, you get double strike, and then you're attacking for, if I can do the math here, Lease is a 5/5, so
17 double strike.
17 double strike, 34 damage.
Yeah. I like that.
So that's 3 cards that you just play on curve that are all good on their own. So I'm very happy with that. So I think this card is awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
Even in not that miracle scenario, of course, it's just good on curve. So I love that card. And I have too much. I shouldn't keep talking about it, but it adds 2 devotion for Nykthos. It's just kind of a funny meme. But so next card, what do we have?
So there's a lot of really decent to good uncommon legendary creatures in this set, and we just picked 2 of them to talk about right now. But the first one is Kardur Doomscourge. He's a 4-mana Rakdos Demon Berserker. He's a 4/3, and when he enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponent's control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So that first line of text, that's really familiar, because that is Goad.
Yeah. I don't think they wanted the keyword in Standard, was why they didn't use Goad.
Yeah, but notably, that thing of all your creatures your opponents control get goaded, that's Disrupticorum, which was a pretty decent to strong card out of Commander product a few years ago. I think the Edgar Markov deck. Yeah, that was 4 mana.
And this is 4 mana and it's a creature.
Yeah, this is 4 mana in your command zone and it's a body. And it has that ability of making your opponents
draining them,
lose life and you gain life.
Whenever an attacking creature dies, which is interesting because it's not your attacking creatures, it's any attacking creature. So when your opponent's creatures get goaded, they have to swing into somebody. If there's no good attacks, they're just getting their creatures eaten. And then everyone's losing life.
Yeah, I think our friend Jesse has a Rakdos the Showstopper, Rakdos like kind of blank deck, and I think he said he's going to switch the commander to this, or at least put this in the deck.
It is a demon.
Yeah. So that card I think is just super solid. Disrupt Decorum has been good every time I've played it. It's kind of a more casual card, like in more like battle cruise or like combat based scenarios, but being able to do that every turn is really strong.
Yeah, and I don't think we've seen a standard legal uncommon commander as powerful as this since, I don't know what, like Tatiova or something?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, it's no Tatiova, but I think it's. I like this level of.
Yeah, I really like
strength.
when they don't. I mean, like, there's been some okay ones, but like I like when they push the uncommon commanders to be at least like playable and have like good stats to go along with their effects. I really like this card. It's awesome.
Very cool. And then we have Cole, the Forge Master. It's a Boros commander. It's only 2 mana. 2 mana commander. Super awesome.
They've been printing a lot of 2 mana Boros commanders. They had the one in the other one that right there, the Aura one, right? Was 2 mana or no?
I think
Precon?
Wyleth is 3.
Oh,
but still, like low CMC.
See how much I know.
Well, I mean, Boros commanders used to be like 10 mana and didn't do anything. So I like having 2 mana, 3 mana ones that do stuff.
Yeah,
that's a nice change. That's what you should expect,
exactly,
out of your Magic cards.
But yeah, this is a 2 mana 2/2. When another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. And then it also has the ability creature tokens that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1.
So that second line of text, I don't think is very significant, and it's actively like a non-bow with Skull Clamp, which
yeah, that kind of sucks.
I think this is like the Skull Clamp deck.
Yeah,
because Boros is best at equipments. So this is the 3rd equipment payoff commander we've gotten within the last 2 years now. Like we had Akiri, Wyleth, and now this. And this is obviously a little bit different than those two. I think this is more of kind of a value combo deck. And I've seen like some talk about like this as a CDH commander with like being able to abuse sack outlets and something like Shuko.
Yeah, or Dockside Extortionist or something.
Yeah, and just like getting a low CMC creature back and continuously replaying it after you sacrifice it.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be
like
pretty strong.
Memnite or something, yeah.
Yeah, playing 0 mana creature,
Kobold of Kirkheap,
an Ashnod's Altar, and an equipment that costs 1 or none to equip will make you infinite colorless mana.
Yeah. One thing I think people have been mentioning, and I just want to talk a little bit about this. I have heard people talk online about how they don't like how every new Boros commander they print is like equipment themed, but I'm not too bothered by it. Like, I think it's a pretty core part of what Boros does. And
yeah, it's what Boros is best at. I think it's great that they're finally getting payoffs in the command zone for what they're good at.
And not just because they have like 3 cards recently, like they've made like, or maybe 4, because if you have like Arden and whatever Rograk, but like they've been printing some other Boros commanders that don't synergize with equipment. You'll play equipment in them because it's good, but like I don't know. I've heard people say like that this is boring because it's equipment, but like I don't agree with that at all.
Well, people say it's boring because it's equipment. They say it's boring because it's aggro or Voltron. This is notably an equipment commander that is not necessarily Voltron or aggro.
Exactly.
It's a way to make value out of your equipments, and I think that's really cool.
You could build it aggro, but like I think most people that are trying to squeeze every bit of value out of this are gonna like build it combo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a really strong card.
And also, I mean, like I've heard, I'm just, kind of throwing some shade here, but I've heard people talking about how, like, the second ability to give your tokens +1/+1 is like, why is that on the card? Like, that you don't want to use tokens in your deck. I don't think it's bad for them to put an ability that, like, I use this word a lot, but incidentally powerful, even if it's not what your deck's trying to do. It doesn't, like, pull you in 2 directions. You just go one direction, and then, like, if you make a token, like, it has that little bit of value on it. Like, it's not a downside, except for Skull Clamp. It's not a downside. Like, it doesn't make... You're not going to put token, like, producers in this deck, and then, I don't know.
Do you think there's a chance that they almost, like, purposefully put that card on there to, like, almost, like, correct the mistake that is Skull Clamp?
I don't think so. But... if that was something that crossed their mind, bravo, that was smart.
Well, because like there's this story about how when they designed Skull Clamp, how they were gonna have it be equipped creature gets +1/+1, and has that ability, and they thought that was too strong,
and make it cost more mana.
So they changed it to equipped creature gets +1/-1, thinking that would nerf fix it, and it made it better,
much better.
So this like I've actively not played cards before because like there's this core creature. that gives your equipped creatures +1/+1, and I don't play that card.
It makes Skullclamp bad,
Because, Skullclamp doesn't work with it.
Yeah, but just being able to, like, Skullclamp a recruiter or something, and then having that die, and then it goes back to your hand, and you can use it again. Pretty cool. But I think I've ranted too much about Cole, and I think you've said everything that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Coma, Cosmos Serpent. This is a pretty powerful card, was obviously on the most recent game nights. Kind of crushed the game. Didn't win, but spoiler, I got him, owned.
So Coma is a 7-mana, 6/6 Serpent. It's uncounterable, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you create a 3/3 blue Serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. And it says, sacrifice another Serpent, choose one. Tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Or, Coma, Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible until end of turn. So I appreciate that they're finding new ways to make Simic commanders oppressive, you know?
So, this card is broken. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this card is just broken. Like, I'm not much of the man, Simic cards are broken hype train, but this card is broken.
Within the first rotation that it's out, you get 12 power worth of tokens and a 6/6. So you get 18 power and toughness.
And it protects itself and protects you from opponents' things.
Yeah, I had a game recently on Magic Online where somebody played this, and if they had played just a little bit tighter, they would have been able to, like, I had a Sarah Ascendant, and they ramped this out and played it like turn 4. They were almost able to lock that down just for the rest of the game if this was left unanswered.
And then still get one for every other player's turn.
And it's hard to answer. It can't be countered, and it can get indestructible.
So I've seen some people mention that this card is like, some people say like, oh, this card's sneaky good. Like, you're gonna pull it out and people aren't gonna expect it to be good. I think this card, like, if you read it, it looks good, and it's even better than it looks.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple card, really, but the fact that triggers each upkeep, I feel like you'll always have enough fuel to use those abilities to keep this alive. Never mind if you clone this or, like, copy it somehow, like if you play a Spark Double on it, or if you just, like, have a token doubler effect or something.
Yeah.
That's like a win condition within itself, just if you play, like, Parallel Lives or Doubling Season with this.
This is a win condition with nothing as well. Like, no other cards play this, protects itself, and is a win condition. So you could play this in a deck with just, like, if you want to be, like, a real big meanie head, you could play, like, just, like, a bunch of board wipes and, Cyclonic Rift stuff and, like, counter spells, and ramp spells. You just play this, and then just hold up all of your mana for the rest of the game, tap down problematic things, counter problematic things, and then you just win by attacking.
See, this is the sort of thing I want to see on, like, a white token producer, is something that gives you stuff every upkeep, so it scales with multiplayer, so it's not necessarily, totally oppressive in a 1v1 format.
Yeah. And would maybe be a little bit more balanced because you don't have that high level of card draw in white. You obviously have card advantage, but you can't draw into more removal pieces in white as well. Whereas in blue, you can draw into counter spells and removal. And, in green, you can draw as well. So,
yeah, I think on the recent game nights, we saw this played, and just having the counter spells to protect Coma, aside from the Coma Coils, like,
oh my god,
there's no way to kill this thing.
Even free counter spells the turn you play it.
Did it get removed that, like, entire game? Maybe once?
I don't quite remember. Maybe once, but I don't know if it got removed. Well, yeah.
And what's another way that you try and remove big commanders like this, especially if they have indestructible? Edicts. But you have extra tokens, like...
Yeah.
We just... In that Magic Online game, I can't remember how we killed it, but it was difficult.
Yeah, and being able to stop activated abilities while, if it's like a sack outlet or something, it's not really going to stop it because they can always respond. And it doesn't...
You know the awesome thing about that? You can target lands.
You can. So in their upkeep, you can be like, you can't use your Gaia's Cradle during your main phase.
Yeah. What if you just make a bunch of Serpents and you're like, hey guys, you can't tap your lands now.
Oh my god.
You don't have mana.
But it does stop. Activated abilities with timing restrictions, like the new boast mechanic. You have to do that after it's attacked. So and you could also just tap it down so it can't. But things like that you can stop.
I'm just looking at the show notes. I didn't see you snuck that in there.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that offhand, but
Yeah, people are...
That's an inside joke.
If
you don't want to know.
People are downplaying the power of this card.
They're wrong.
Yeah.
That's it. But, people can be wrong about power level cards. Everyone makes mistakes, but I just want you to realize that this card is...
Just treat it... Maybe it's not like Tatiova strong, but I'd say if you play against it, maybe evaluate it on that level of you cannot let this stick.
If you have an opportunity to kill it, you go all out and kill it.
Yeah, because it's just gonna get worse and worse.
Yep. No, you need oh my god. Okay, I'm done talking about it. You need some very choice pieces of removal to take care of this. Yeah. Our next card, not quite as powerful as that, but a card that I equally think is kind of libeled against in the Magic community is Sarulf, Realm Eater. This is a new Golgari commander. It's a 3-mana 3/3, and it has the ability whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it gets a counter. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if it has any counters on it, you can remove them all and exile each other non-land permanent with CMC less than or equal to the number of counters you removed. So what I was alluding to earlier was I don't like calling out people too much, but I think that the command zone is a bit wrong, and that they were saying this card is super oppressive and it's going to make for very unfun games. And I think they compared it to Tiny Bones. I don't think Tiny Bones is that bad, but that you can see what they think of this card. They think it's really oppressive and stuff. I definitely don't think that's the case. It's not like a Pernicious Deed. You can't just crack it at the worst possible time for your opponents. It has to be cracked on your upkeep. So everyone can remove it anytime they want. The thing that I like about this card is that I really like the mode of this card of being just a big beater and coming down on turn 3 and being a removal magnet. I like that. I like that this makes your opponents have to remove your 3-drop that you don't even have to put any effort into making good. I really like that about it, but I don't think it's super oppressive to exile everyone's board. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we talked about that on our last episode about how forcing your opponents to use removal on low CMC targets is very advantageous for you.
Yeah.
Especially if that's your commander and you can just keep playing it out.
I would play this as a mid-range commander. They said in the command zone, not to bring their name up all the time, I'm sorry, but they said I don't think you'd want to play small creatures in that deck because you're going to want to exile them with your thing. No, I think you just play this as... I think you can just play your Managor Hydras and stuff in this deck, and if you have to exile if you're going to exile your stuff, you just don't exile them, and then you just attack with your creatures, and then this card on its own will stop your opponent from playing their small things if they know they don't have a removal spell for it, and it's gonna get exiled.
Yeah, same concept as any board wipe. You don't use it when you're ahead on board. Just because it says it can do that doesn't mean you have to do it.
And yeah, those on-board board wipes, they have that kind of second mode, like I mentioned, of kind of affecting how your opponents play. And any time that you can make your opponents have to play around what you do, that's usually very powerful.
Yep.
So I like this card a lot for different reasons than some other people do, but I don't think it's going to be, the Tiny Bones of Golgari or something dumb like that. Now, dialing it back from my from my rant, I apologize. I will try to keep that to a minimum.
It's time for me to rant.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got our first artifact up. Is the Cosmos Elixir. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. And it's 4 mana. This card is literally unplayable.
This is a terrible card. This is our hot take here.
This is the worst card in the set.
A little bit, maybe go a little far there, but but I appreciate the punctuality.
Yeah, I saw some people when this got spoiled being like, "Oh, this should be a white card," or "Why isn't this in white?" And it doesn't do anything.
This card is quite bad, I think.
I mean, so what's the best case scenario? Your life gain deck.
Maybe we should read it.
Yeah, I read it.
Oh, you did? I think I just had an aneurysm. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
so I say it. It's like,
it's like, wait, yeah, I didn't hear you. Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
But yeah, the best case scenario on your end step, you play it, and you draw a card. So 4 mana. So there's people that say Phyrexian Arena is not good enough because it's too slow. That's 3 mana, and always draws you the card. This is 4 mana, and oftentimes will not draw you the card, and guess what? Now it gives people a reason to attack you so they can be like, well, yeah, I didn't want you to draw a card.
It's like when you play a Bull Citadel, and they're like, well, I don't want you to have life. You got life, so...
So is this card worth, for that benefit, like, giving people a reason to attack you? It's not like a Monarch card or something like that. You can't, like, protect that card draw.
In the same way that a Planeswalker will make your opponents attack your Planeswalkers, like this just like people will just send their incidental creatures at you if you're at like 41 life. Like it's not like, and then what, you're gonna pay 4 mana for a artifact that gains 2 life every turn? Well, good job, you triggered your life gain effects. There are much better ways to do that.
Yeah, that's...
Oh my god.
It's just the worst.
I think this card is, almost, I would fringe to unplayable, I would say. I don't think I'd play this in a life gain deck. I don't think I would.
Well, and people are saying, like, well, you want card draw effects in mono white, so people play stuff like Mind's Eye. This is way worse than Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye is, you know what, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, you're playing Mind's Eye or you're playing Cosmos Elixir in your mono white deck, I play Mind's Eye for sure, and I would grit my teeth and I'd do it, but that's way, way better. That makes... Mind's Eye looks like Rhystic Study compared to this.
Yeah, I think this might be... We might polarize some people listening to this, because I think this card... A lot of people like this card, and if you like it, play it. I'm not telling you don't play it, but we will not be playing this card. I don't like it at all.
I think you will have an actively worse time if you play this card in a game of Commander. So I gotta remove the hate from my heart, but...
I was trying to wrap it up on that, but I just realized, like, wouldn't you rather play like any other like reasonable 4-drop card, even if it doesn't draw cards in your deck? Isn't it just like better to play like a what was it? It's not like Furia's that saga I was talking about earlier. Isn't that much better?
Good stuff for 4 mana.
Yeah, there's a lot of really powerful cards at 4 mana, and it's like, and people are gonna be like, oh, this is like the best. It's at its best in a white deck, right? Even the white deck doesn't want it, in my opinion. So why would a blue, green, black, or red deck play this card?
If I see somebody play this in a blue deck, I'm gonna cringe a little bit. I'm gonna try and hold my tongue.
Gonna respectfully not be rude to them, of course, because you never want to be rude to your opponents.
Don't be a bully.
Don't bully people for their card choices. But go on a podcast and bully them about it later. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Trying to just say, just don't do it. It's not that great.
Yeah.
But again, maybe it's not made for Commander. We're just saying this because we think people think it's made for Commander.
We think that people get this card wrong. I mean, and if I can dial it back for just a moment, I know we were very ranting and being very punctual about this, but like, it's obviously not like that bad. Like, you could play it in your deck, but like, I don't know. I don't think you should.
It is that bad.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll do it.
Fair enough. Moving on.
Good card. Pyre of Heroes. It's a 2-mana artifact. Pay 2, tap it, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrifice creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this only as a sorcery. So it's a tribal birthing pod.
It's a tribal birthing pod, exactly.
At different cost points, but that's fine. I think where a lot of people are going to go wrong with this card is thinking that it only goes in tribal decks.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, like, I don't know if a lot of people know this. I mean, like, I'm sure people know this because it's awesome. But, like, Birthing Pod is one of the most scary cards to see on the table against you. That card is crazy good. And most decks will have a couple creatures that they can Birthing Pod, quote-unquote, Pyre of Heroes into, even if it's not a tribal deck, like you said. So I think that's just good enough, honestly. Like, depending on how you build your deck, you can build your deck so we're like, oh, I got a couple humans, I got a 2, a 3, and a 4, and a 5. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, like, I'm almost wondering if I could play this in my, like in my Gerard deck or something to, like, go from, like, a Goblin Welder into, like, a Dockside Extortionist. Like,
yeah, or, like, an Imperial Recruiter into, like,
I'd have
something.
to get a 4-drop, yeah. So
there might be one.
I'd have to evaluate my mana curve more because it does have to be exactly one more than that mana curve. So you'll have to, like, I think, look at your overlap of creature types and mana curves.
Yeah, but like,
if you can go, like, your 2-drop into your 3-drop once you've already gotten, like, the ETB, that's kind of neat. I like that.
Yeah, even if you have, like, if you play, like, I mean, so you could also think about this as a way of like tutoring out a card if you play like a commander that you kind of don't like, it gets its value right away, like when you play it, like a commander with an ETB effect or something, and that's the value of it. And you go your commander, and then you pot away your commander into something specific that you put in your deck to get. That'd be kind of interesting.
And that's not even to mention changelings now. Like if you
they
do
can
this
get
on a
everything.
changeling, you can get anything.
Yeah, and then maybe you would consider playing that Masked Vandal in the deck that wants this. Probably not. I mean, I don't like that card. We talked about that earlier. But like, at least there's the synergy of being able to tutor into any 3-drop. That's something, right?
Yeah. Like, do you think maybe, so in, like, your Aurelia deck, you could go
Mirror Entity,
sacrifice
right?
a 2-drop, get your Mirror Entity, and then you can use Mirror Entity to get any 4-drop in your deck.
Yeah, you could go into, like, your, what's the new, I don't remember I don't know. Card names are not my forte, but the new OP white card that everyone loves that that gets you lands and tokens.
Oh, yeah, Keeper of the Accord.
Yeah. Or just like some 4-drop with haste or something. Like, obviously, it's just a cool card. I think this card is, well, it's like a fixed Birthing Pod. I think Birthing Pod is probably a little too good, in my opinion.
Yeah, the creature type restriction on this makes it a very fair card, I think.
Yeah.
Still strong. Tutors are always going to be good, and going up mana is good. But,
Yeah.
this one costs 2 mana and tap. Like, isn't Birthing Pod just 1 and a Phyrexian green?
Yeah. So, and it costs 3 and a Phyrexian to play, so it's like the same mana for the first activation, but subsequent activations will cost more on this one. But you can play this in turn 2. So.
Very cool.
Yeah, and you could. This is before we move on, you could curve this like on turn 2, then on turn 3 you play a 1-drop and then activate it to get your 2-drop. Like, that's not too bad.
Neat.
It's okay.
Like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, moving on.
Speaking of cool, we got Weathered Runestone. It's an artifact for 2 mana. Non-land permanent cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries.
So this is kind of like a Graph Digger's Cage a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's got some extra upside over Graph
For
Digger's Cage.
one more
too,
mana,
doesn't
right?
it?
Because that's 1 mana for Graph Digger's
Yeah.
Cage. Yeah. So it's like that for 1 more mana, but does a little bit more.
Yeah, people can't reanimate any non-land permanent.
Although, yeah.
They can't tutor a non-land permanent directly into play, like with a Chord of Calling or something like that.
They can't play cards off like an Underworld Breach or other things with flashback.
Bolus the Citadel.
Yeah.
Shut off.
Yeah, you can't. If they does Cascade work? Cascade.
Yeah, they can't cast it from a library.
Cascade, yeah. So I think this. I mean, like obviously, like it's kind of a like it's not good card advantage or whatever. But like if you're looking for more graveyard hate or library those sort of thing hate pieces to put in your deck, this is a solid choice to think about.
Yeah, it's a know your meta kind of card, and obviously we don't believe that removal or like good stacked pieces like justify really powerful and oppressive effects, but they're nice to see, especially after we got a set with a bunch of Cascade cards.
Yeah,
having, like extra hate for that is
and
nice.
if you're playing like a deck that you draw a card for your artifacts, that kind of makes this more bearable.
Yeah,
when you cast them or whatever. So it's kind of a cool card. So that does it for all of the artifacts. We're not talking about no Plow. Plow sucks.
Yeah, don't play the... Okay, you know what? I changed my mind. Cosmos Elixir is not the worst card in the set. Colossal Plow is. Colossal Plow, more like Colossal piece of shit.
True. I don't like the tractor. Okay, sorry. But now, last but not least, we're going to talk about some of the lands in the set. Like there's a kind of large number of them. Obviously, the most obvious thing to talk about is snow duels, based or cringe. What do you think?
So we got this cycle of snow lands, and they enter the battlefield tap for 2 colors, but you think, well, that's not anything too impressive. But these have land types on them. So that's something notable. I still personally don't love running Guildgate type of lands, or just like a 2-color land that enters tapped and has no extra upside.
Yeah.
But for more budget-minded players, I think it's nice that these have the land types on them.
Yeah, so you can get them with land tax and effects and the Croson Verge stuff and all those things. You can get you can search them with those.
Yeah, there are budget cards that care about land types aside from just your classic fetch lands, because obviously those are ridiculously expensive. But you get slow fetches.
Yeah, and people will play triomes and stuff because they can fetch them. But triomes, I think, are a bit expensive, like maybe $6 or $7 or something like that. I don't know exactly how much they cost, but these are a budget option.
So
if you
I think play these over Guild Gates.
For sure, they're much better than Guild Gates. So I'll give these a based, I guess.
Yeah, we're not going to play them necessarily, but it's nice that they exist. There's no harm done, and if your deck cares about snow stuff, it's nice to have snow dual lands.
Do you want to take a second, and before we move on to the other cards, take a second to talk about what we think of snow lands in general, and if decks should be playing snow lands? Like snow basics?
Yeah, I mean, the snow mechanic is interesting because, like, before Redain, there wasn't really
a reason not to, right?
Any downside to snow lands, and Redain's not really enough reason to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always thought the snow thing was weird because they've, in the past, like, they'll go a long time between having snow basics printed out, so they will get expensive sometimes.
Yeah.
But between Modern Horizons and Kaldheim now, they should be affordable for everybody.
Yeah.
And people like to do the thing with extra planar lands, right?
Yeah, they do.
Where you exile the land, and lands that specifically have that name will tap for extra mana. So using like snow islands in your deck can shut it off so you don't give other people's islands extra mana.
Yeah. So
I've always thought the play was to play like a couple of snow basics in your deck, just in case you run into that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, some of them just look really cool.
Yeah, one of the problems with snow basic lands, like the only it's a little bit conflicting because a lot of people like to play arts, and like if you have like a foil, full art basic or something, you want to play it in your deck, or you have like a certain art you like. It sucks because if you might think, oh, but snow basics are like strictly better type thing, and then you're like, I can't play the arts I like. So it's a little bit conflicting for some players. I've got a friend who is really upset about that, and he hates snow basics because he wants to play the arts he likes, but he's also kind of a spiky player, so he wants to get the value. That's a little bit conflicting. I don't know if I like that very much, but I think, generally snow basics are probably going to be better. I don't think Redain is enough to not play them. But I just want to mention something real quick. There is an interesting interaction with snow basics with what's the Myriad Landscape. So Myriad Landscape is a land that says you can sacrifice it to get two basic lands that have a different name, I believe, into play. So like the way that was designed was like it makes you get like a mountain, or sorry, they have the same type, right? That's what it was. So the way it would make it work, sorry, I misspoke. The way that it was intended was you would have to get like two mountains. So it can't fix you mana, it can't get you a mountain and a forest. But because snow basic lands have a snow subtype on their type box, if you get two snow lands, you can get a snow swamp and a snow mountain because they both share a type. They share the snow type. So if you're playing Myriad Landscape, I would suggest at least playing a small number, maybe 1 to 2 of each snow basic in your deck, so you have that availability to get that. It's very, very niche, but it's kind of an interesting thing that I think most people don't realize.
Yeah, so this got me thinking about the card Search for Glory that we talked about earlier, how like it's playable in a non-snow deck.
Yeah.
But it has that like little extra upside of like you gain life if you spend snowman on it.
Yeah.
If you want to play that card, do you just like, if you're like a super spike, like, and you want like every little edge you can get, do you just like make all your lands snow lands so you can gain like 1 to 3 life off of it?
I mean, probably, right? But like you don't have to. Like I probably wouldn't. Maybe I would, but like I wouldn't feel like I was losing too much if I didn't.
Right.
But like it's probably correct to do so. And also another reason to play a mix of snow basics and regular basics is cards like Field of the Dead. I think snow basics count as a different card name for Field of the Dead.
Name.
Yeah. So there's a couple cards where it can be relevant, but overall I think snow basics are kind of hit or miss for a lot of people, and some people really like them. Some people, like my friend that I was talking about earlier, it kind of doesn't like the fact that they exist. Mm-hmm. But sorry, that tangent about snow basics I think was kind of important to talk about because it's such a big theme of this set.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm not too upset by them, and I don't think you should stress over the value of snow basics too much. Play them if you want, don't if you don't. It's fine. So yeah, moving on. You want to talk about the World Tree.
This is a land, notably not legendary.
Also not snow.
Enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for a green. It has this ability, as long as you control 6 or more lands, lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. And then it has this crazy activated ability that costs double Wooburg.
So 10 mana, door to nothingness mana.
Tap and sacrifice the World Tree. Search your library for any number of God cards, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
Yeah, you can get Slifer the Sky Dragon, Obelisk the Tormentor, and Winged Dragon of Ra. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, when are we getting the Secret Lair Yu-Gi-Oh?
That'd be awesome. Where they, it's like the Godzilla cards with their Yu-Gi-Oh arts.
I want a Slifer.
Yeah. Not to get too distracted. So what do you think of this card? Is it broken or bad?
So I saw some people talking about on Twitter when this came out how, like, it's just an auto-include for 5-color decks now. And I think it probably is, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, it's... So, the upside of being able to... So, ignoring the final ability, let's just talk about the upside of having it... So, it fixes your lands when you have 6 or more lands. Like, that's pretty good in a 5-color deck. Oftentimes, you'll play... the 3-mana artifact, the mana rock that does that, Chromatic Lantern. You'll often play Chromatic Lantern just to make, in 5-color decks, even if you have good mana base, just to, like, get rid of the headache of tapping mana.
It makes it easier to think, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it.
And, like, this enters tapped, but, like, all things considered, like, it's not a huge, opportunity cost to have a 1-land enter tap in your deck. Like, consider how many tap lands you have, but this is not the worst one to play.
I think the way that Chromatic Lantern ability is overrated is that it doesn't really trigger when you need it to trigger. Like, you want your fixing early in the game.
Right away, yeah.
Typically, by that point in the game where you have 6 or more lands, you don't really have to worry about your colors so much, but just like you said, the fact that you get rid of that headache is really nice. So I think I would definitely play this in a 5-color deck, just to be able to do that and not have to worry about, like, spending the wrong colors of mana between turns.
What? Yeah. But the thing is, with this card, is that the second ability is kind of like the big splashy effect. Like, it's the thing you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I think a lot of decks will play this with no gods in their deck and no ways to turn all your creatures into gods. But there's obviously that play of, like, that new blue enchantment they have this set, which makes all the creatures in your deck...
Oh, the artifact.
Sorry. Not the enchantment. The artifact, yes. It makes all of your creature types.
Yeah, or if you do have an enchantment like Conspiracy or the blue version that's 3 mana.
Yeah. I mean, that is a win the game, put all the creatures in your deck into play. Like, that is a thing.
Yeah, giving yourself that kind of 2-card combo, which one of the slots is just a land.
Yeah.
It could be worth looking at.
And if you're at the point where you can activate that ability, you know, it fixes it so, like, if you don't have to have, like, 2 mountains, 2 swamps, like, you know, if you have, like, 9 forests and this, like, they'll tap for all the colors of mana you need. So, I don't know. Obviously it's cool for the people that always want to make their god tribal deck, you know, obviously including that.
I think the World Tree is a strong card, but that ability does cost
10 mana.
10 mana and sacrifice a land.
So it's like 11 mana, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, it's not like oppressive good, but I think it's a solid card, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a card that you maybe pick up a copy of to have in the binder.
Like, I guess, do you disagree for 11 mana and another card? Should you be able to win the game for that?
Sure.
Probably, given no interaction.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's fine. It is hard to interact with this, to be fair. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think the card's cool. If you want to move on to I think we've said about all we can about it.
Yeah. There's an uncommon land cycle in Kaldheim, and they don't really have, like, a consistent naming convention. We're not going to list every name, but how they work is they enter the battlefield tapped, and they tap for 1 color.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not any kind of dual land, but they have a multicolored activate ability where you pay a cost, sacrifice them, and get an effect.
Yeah.
And we had a friend that really seemed to think these were really powerful and kind of auto-includes in a lot of decks that could play them. And while I think most of them are good, they're a tap land that doesn't give you 2 colors of mana, and their abilities, for the most part, are pretty overcosted.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're not, like, bad cards. Like, if I see someone play it in a deck, I'll be like, okay, cool. But, like, honestly, like, only, like, 2 or 3 out of the 10 cards, I think, are really, like, super powerful abilities for how much they cost. Because you don't just have to pay the mana to do them. You have to pay the expensive cost and sacrifice the land. So, like, I don't know. I don't like losing lands for their abilities if I don't have to.
I guess I'll read off the 2 that
think are really good.
I think are the most powerful, and I think most people would agree. The first one is the Dimir one. It just taps for a blue, though.
Yeah, Port of Carfell, right?
Yeah, Port of Carfell for 3, a blue, and a black. Tap, sacrifice Port of Carfell.
So 7 mana, pretty much, because you have to tap it and sack it.
Mill 4 cards, and then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's reanimate on land. So I like this one. I'd play that effect. That's pretty... They're land, so obviously the reason that somebody might think these are overly powerful is because of the low opportunity cost in deck building.
Yeah.
But you're playing a tap land that just taps for 1 color.
And it costs 7 mana and lose a land to reanimate. Like that, like, if someone does that to me, I'm like, okay, you know, you're not breaking the format with that. Like, it's fine. It can be good. Like, and it's like not too bad to play in your deck, but like, if the effects are like much worse than this, I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, and somebody might say, well, oh, EDH Takes, you guys are
That's
hypocrites because you like the MDFC lands, and those are all tap lands that are mostly tap lands that tap for 1 color and have inefficient effects.
Yeah.
But the ones that we like of those, they're not like... These are like 1 million mana.
Yeah, and the key difference with those is that you don't lose a land with MDFCs. If you're playing the MDFC as a land, you're playing your land. You're not... If you're playing an MDFC as the spell, you're not playing it if you're missing your land drop. Right? If you're going to miss your land drop, you probably just play as a land.
Yeah, so these ones, I don't even think those abilities are nearly as strong as any of the spell sides of the MDFCs.
Yeah. What was the other one that we thought was really good?
Jara Mirror Lake.
Yes.
Again, taps for just blue, enters tapped. For 2, green, blue, tap, sacrifice it. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. And use this only as a sorcery.
Yeah, so this one's just like a clone effect on a creature for... How much mana does that cost?
5.
5 plus the sap sack, so 6 mana total.
It has to be your creature.
Has to be your creature. So, obviously, like, you know, decks that play clone effects, like, it's nice to have one on a land that can come into play later when you need it, but, like, it costs a lot, like...
Well, the thing about clone effects is you want to use your... Say, you have a 4-mana clone. You want to target a creature that costs 5 or more. You want to be mana efficient with it. You want to be up mana.
Yeah.
So you have to have a target on board that is more than 6 mana to use this efficiently, I think.
This costs the same as, like, a Progenitor Mimic.
Yeah, and that's going to give you...
If it survives more.
That's going to be a clone, give you another clone. Like that's...
And it can clone anybody's thing.
But yeah, again, obviously this is a land, so it's nice just having it as a land. So I guess it depends with these on how much leeway you have in your mana base.
Yeah.
If you can afford to play some more tap lands.
2-color decks, more reasonable than more color decks than that. But, like, I don't know. Like, some of these, like, aren't, like the... Just to talk about one of them, Gates of Istfell, the white and blue one, is a 5-mana tap sack, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Like, people are like, oh, I assume people are like, oh, this is a cool card, you know, it draws cards and stuff. But there was a card from Zendikar Rising that was like a blue card that like was like 7 mana, sacrifice it, draw 2 cards. And like no one even considered that card because it was terrible. Like, and this is only like 1 mana cheaper than that. I guess that one tapped for colorless, this one taps for blue, but I think that one entered untapped. So that was probably better than this. I don't know. So maybe it didn't enter untapped. I don't quite remember. But my point is, like, I don't think this is the kind of thing you want to do.
Oh, you're talking about the one from Battle for Zendikar?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Blighted Cat.
The Blighted cycle, yes. Does it enter tapped?
It enters
tapped. It enters untapped.
Taps for colorless, and for 5 blue, tap, sacrifice it, you draw 2 cards.
Yeah, I couldn't quite remember exactly what the card did. But, like, this card is, I think, worse. Because
So you would think, like, oh, so, you know, these are nice because they kind of help you from, like, flooding out. But if you're in top deck mode and you draw one of these, they enter tap, so you're not even able to use them the turn that you draw them. which I think is a big deal. That's another thing the MDFCs have up on these. I guess one that's maybe worth mentioning is Axguard Armory. It's the
Boros one.
Boros one. It taps for a white, and for 1 red, red, white, tap sack, search your library for an aura card and or an equipment card. Reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle your library.
That's kind of cool that you can get both, but like I said, if you're like you definitely don't want to use it on curve because you're losing a land, and late game, like I guess it's all right, right?
Well, yeah, it's nice that it's a tutor on a land, but I'm not even playing any auras in my equipment decks right now. Maybe I'll play some runes at a point.
Yeah, but maybe you could consider Spectral Steel like we talked about because that can rebuy them. But other than that, I don't think you're really playing any.
I would always want to get both targets off of this for it to be worth it.
Yeah, and if you're playing like pacifism effects in your equipment deck to make value out of this, I think you're going wrong. You're going wrong somewhere.
If you're just getting an equipment off of this, just play Inventor's Fair instead.
Much better, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've talked about these cards enough. There's some of these, like we said, there's better alternatives that enter untapped. I'd rather play those.
But then we got the finishing of the Pathway cycle in this set from Zendikar Rising.
Yeah, Pathways are awesome because they're like $3 or something or $4 for most of them, and they're very. Some people will say that these are like, oh, they're only budget cards because they're like not that great, but like they're okay. I think these cards are decent to good, even at like the highest power level. Or maybe not like CDH, but you know what I mean. Like I think these are like approaching the level of like a Karoo land or something. I think they're pretty powerful.
Oh yeah, I think they're much better than that. Coming in untapped, I think is a big deal, and even like functionally worse dual land. Just having untapped lands is a big deal.
So yeah, these being a nice cheap inclusion is at least reasonably cheap to pick up. I'd recommend getting some of these for your decks.
Yep, if you're looking for, we now have the white blue, the Rakdos, Golgari, and the Simic ones.
Yeah, don't get the Simic one though.
Don't get the Simic.
I'm just kidding. I love me a Simic deck too.
And throw it in the trash.
Incinerate it. Okay, and then we're going on pretty long, but we do have one more thing we want to mention, and that's the 2 commander decks for the associated with the set. I know the professor made a video about them saying that, wow, there's a lot of cool new cards in these decks, and they're really cheap. I do like that about them.
We're going to continue to be super biased. One of the decks is an elf deck. It's got some elf cards. If you like elf stuff, play the elf cards. Some of them aren't that great, though. So
I don't like elf cards very much.
So we're not going to talk about those, really. Then there's the white-blue deck. Most of the cards are really not that great. But there's a couple notable ones that we think are kind of cool. The first being Cosmic Intervention. It's a 3 and a white instant. If a permanent you control will be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile it instead. Then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And it has Foretell for 1 and a white.
So like we said earlier, we love these Foretell instants. They're just easy to hold up mana for. That's the first thing I noticed when I see this card.
Yeah, I've always wanted to play with, and I used to play with it a lot, Faith's Reward is a really good board protection card in white. And
it
for
costs
mono white.
So much mana.
Yeah, and it lets you get card advantage back if you have like end of the battlefield triggers on your creatures and somebody board wipes you, you get kind of card advantage out of that. But having to hold up 4 mana is just, it feels terrible if nobody board wipes when you hold that up.
Yeah.
So this, being able to foretell it and then just hold up 2, it's really easy to hold up 2 mana for a board protection spell.
Mm-hmm. So, not too much to mention about that, other than that, like, it's a cool inclusion. You can consider it for your decks. This other card, though, is something that I think got a lot of hate online, but I think it's a lot better than other people think.
Yeah, people are not a fan of Stoic Farmer, but we think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's not crazy, but it's just another good version of an effect we've had before. When it enters the battlefield, you search for a basic Plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you put it on the battlefield tapped. But if they don't, you put it into your hand and shuffle your library.
And it's a 4 mana 3/3, but it has Foretell for 3 mana.
Just 2 mana, actually.
Oh, 2 mana. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so you can go 2 and then 2 later on.
Yeah.
So I think that's notable, because, I mean, it's not terrible if you play it for 4 mana, but it's, just kind of another core cartographer.
Yeah. The one thing that I really like about this card, in comparison to, like, the way that some people are complaining about the fact that it only gets ramps if it's, if you have more, if your opponents have more lands than you. But I really like that this card has that. It always draws a card at least. At the very worst case scenario, it's at least getting you a land. It doesn't just blank if your opponents don't have more. If they don't have more lands than you. I like that about it a lot.
Yeah, and people would say, well, this isn't better than Core Cartographer. It's not better than Solemn Simulacrum. But you only get the one Core Cartographer, and you only get the one Solemn in your mono white deck.
And it's not just strictly worse. Like a lot of people might not agree with this, but like it is a 3/3, which is more power and more toughness than a Core Cartographer. A lot of decks wouldn't care about that, but there are decks that do care about that, I think.
Yeah, that'll block a lot of things, and especially, if you've got that green deck in your meta, like, you should be able to keep recurring and blinking this to, like, get those lands out. And like we said, if you're just getting a land into your hand, that's not amazing, but that's a form of card advantage.
Mm-hmm. So it's nothing like super busted, but like I think it's a fair card, and I like this design of white cards. I think a lot of people are like very upset about this, and like it doesn't do enough. Well, if you keep adding more like good quality cards, like then the whole quality of a deck goes up, and it becomes kind of cool.
Yeah, more redundancy is always good.
Yeah, so I think that about does it for our set review kind of thing. Not really a set review, but
how long we go on
2
this one?
hours.
Oh my god.
Our goal was to make this not go this long, but
I hope the next set just sucks for Commander, and
yeah.
we have an easier time, because I'm worn out of all the product fatigue.
We are known to rant about cards. I'm sorry, guys, but hopefully you don't mind a long episode.
It's just a good set. It's super solid, and I think it's going to be fun to draft, and I'm looking forward to picking up a lot of these cards.
Yeah, I just picked up cards from Commander Legends, and now I have to pick up cards from this set. But whatever, it's fine. It's cool.
I think I've decided from now on that like I'm going to be very strict with the cards I make cuts for, because I've made cuts. I put cards in from like Zendikar Rising, and never even played with those cards before I cut them out of my decks, because new better stuff came out in Commander Legends, and I was just like, I realized then I've got a problem. I need to be very particular about a card hedging out another card, because it's getting to the point, even in, like, I play a mono white deck and like a Boros deck, and the cards I already have are just good enough.
Yeah.
Or too good.
I heard you told me that you cut a card for a new card, and then you cut that new card before even playing it.
Yeah.
Because there was a new card that came out that was cool.
Exactly. Like, there's only so many slots, and I'm pretty happy with where a lot of my decks are, so if anything, it's going to force me into making more decks, so I have more spaces for these new cards.
Got to use those sleeves somehow.
Yeah.
But, that probably should do it for our episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Please give this a like or a dislike.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Or a comment. We really appreciate seeing the comments, and we have a Twitter account. It's at EDH Takes. EDH and the T are capitalized. It's all one word.
You can also check us out. I'll put it in the description, but we've got it up on podcasting services. You'll be able to find it on Spotify and most of I think it's up on like everything except for Apple or iTunes or whatever. But you should be able to. If you don't, if you can always add it to your like manually if you can't find it. If you want to listen to the audio only version. Yeah,
so this one, it was kind of an on-the-fly, just like, we wanted to do a short thing, and we're bad at that, clearly.
Yeah.
But we'll be back later this month with a real spicy episode.
Yep, this has been Spencer Cook and
Elijah Samuelson. Thank you for listening.
Stay frosty.